Evening. The time has arrived. I will call this Monday, May 6th, 2024 meeting to order, a couple minutes behind the schedule, and I appreciate you. I'm gonna give you an A for attendance at this point, and we'll see what it looks like when we get to the very end. Let's see if you can maintain that grade point. So first order of business, we'll have our invocation and pledge of allegiance for Commissioner Tony W. Kozar.
Thank you. Will you bow with me, please? Gracious and loving God, our Father, we're so thankful that you've been so kind to give us another day. And then, God, you didn't just give us a day, but you blessed us with your food. You blessed us with your transportation, and God, with a place to live. And so we want to say thank you. And then, God, you have looked down upon our county with such favor. We thank you for our people. We thank you, God, for the unity that exists among us and that we can live together among one another in peace. Be with us through this meeting. We pray that you would be with our leaders tonight as we come together to make decisions on behalf of our people. And our heart goes out for all of the tragedies that have taken place in our state and in our nation, particularly the law enforcement officers in Charlotte. So we lift up all of our law enforcement, emergency personnel, all those who serve our people. God, we pray you protect them and keep them in your loving care. These blessings we ask in your holy and righteous name. Amen. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Kozar, for those words of encouragement in your prayer. The first order of business tonight after that is the consent agenda. We have one minor correction on the surplus vehicles. We have an incorrectly stated vehicle. The VIN number ends in 1722. It's a 2013 Chevy Silverado with inoperable, not worth the cost of repair. And I'll also note in the consent agenda, there is a proclamation recognizing clerks of the Board of Commissioners Week, which starts this week. And we all know that the clerks are very, very important to the organization of this board, and as old as this board, when they were first set up to maintain communication among citizens and governing bodies to maintain the records in perpetuity. And it is a thankless job for sure as a record keeper for this county. Must be well versed in everything county business. And we just wanted to make sure we pulled that out in the consent agenda to give them a special recognition that they deserve. So what's the pleasure of the board on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with the change to the VIN number on the vehicle identified.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
We've got a motion of Commissioner Wilford, seconded by Commissioner Suhinben. Is there any questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. Next, we've got our introductions, recognitions, and presentations, and we're going to jump right into finance. And our Deputy County Manager, Ms. Weichel, is coming forward, and she is going to introduce our new Finance Director.
Yes. Good evening. Starting over, I'm very thrilled tonight to introduce to you Jennifer Baird, who was sworn in as Granville County's new Finance Director on April 16th. She will lead Finance Office operations while current Finance Director Steve McNally transitions into his retirement at the end of this fiscal year. Jennifer brings 19 years of state and local government experience and leadership to her new role, joining Granville County after 3 years with the City of Durham as Senior Fiscal Analyst and Accounting Operations Supervisor. During her time in Durham, she's managed operations of the city's utility finance department. And prior to joining the city of Durham, Jennifer served as the Chief Finance Officer for Granville Advanced Public Health for 2 years, and also served in finance roles within state government, including Business Officer 2, Assistant Finance Manager for the Departments of Health and Human Services, Public Instruction, and Agricultural and Consumer Services. Jennifer holds degrees in accounting and human services and is completing the North Carolina Local Government Finance Officer certification at the UNC School of Government in Chapel Hill. She and her husband have lived in Granville County since 1993, currently residing in the Berea community. Jennifer is here this evening to formally introduce herself as well.
So, good evening, Chairman, Board, and Administration. So I am honored to have been selected as Granville County's next Finance Director. And I look forward to working with each of you along with staff of all the county departments to ensure that our taxpayer dollars are spent responsibly and our county finances are protected. And I aim to focus on building and maintaining trust with the community and county employees by prioritizing a level of transparency and fiscal accountability that is far-reaching and positively impacts all aspects of what we do. I've spent much of my career in public service, and I believe that this opportunity to serve in the community where I live, where my family lives, and where my grandbabies are going to be raised is not only a blessing, but a privilege. And I look forward to all that we're going to do together to make Granville County the best place to live, work, and play. So do you have any questions for me?
Board, other than say welcome. We've already, swore you in, and we've had you at a few of our functions, and you've hit the ground running for sure. I've heard very good things.
Thank you.
Any other board members have any comments?
I just want to say thank you very much. And those are, well, I don't know about pretty big shoes, but those are big shoes you're getting ready to fill. And so thank you very much for taking this job and for being with us. Thank you.
Looking forward so much to working with you. I have discovered a need for about another $10,000 in the next budget, so I'll talk to you about that.
Just like I said, how I work, look forward to working with you in the future.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Looking forward to working with you. And Steve, I hope you enjoy your retirement. It's well deserved. You've worked hard and you served us well over the years. Thank you so much. And thank you, Jim.
Okay, next we're going to hear an update from our Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, known as JCPC. We've got Eddie Cruz, a Central Area Consultant for North Carolina Department of Public Safety, Division of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, and Reverend Alakume, as we know, is Reverend O, here tonight. He's the chairman of the JCP. Will provide an update on what JCPC is doing and hopes to do regarding risk factors and programming in Granville County. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much.
Mash the button on the podium so that it turns green. There you
Oh,
go.
that's great.
Floor is
All
yours.
right, I can take a text and teach.
Yes, sir.
I am hippopotamus happy and elephantly excited tonight. First of all, I want to bring up Miss Aisha Landis. It was mandated by the commissioners that we had a youth on our council. And it was mandated and it was an ordinance. We had youth. And Miss Aisha Landis has been coming to our meetings and contributing. But that's not why I want to give her an envelope. I want to give her an envelope because Granville County's team court won first place in the state. And it's
Job.
Aisha was the clerk for you clerks. She was the clerk
Oh, my.
in the team court, and we are going to thank her for being there. Thank her for being on our council, and just thank the team court. What's your advisor's name? Ms. Teresa Perrier, for accepting our grant and for doing an outstanding job. Go Granville County.
Amen. Good job.
Aisha, I noticed your sweatshirt with the North Carolina School of Science and Math. Gonna be a dragon. Unfortunately, she's gonna be leaving us, but what an outstanding opportunity to go to the North Carolina School of Science and Math in Morganton, North Carolina. Yeah, so very excited.
They need Granville County folks to show the world what it's like to really do the real thing.
Amen.
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 We are encouraged. We went through COVID, had some rough spots in COVID, but we were able to maintain through COVID what we had to do. When we came through COVID, we did needs risk assessments, and we were very fortunate because the monitor for all of these JCPCs happens to live in Granville County, and I can call him up and we can go down to Strong Arm and drink coffee forever until I get it right. I'm not the smartest person, but I'm the most energetic when it comes to our youth and risk management. As you see, we've sent you getting you some information. If you have any questions about the information you have, please ask me or any fine details you need to know about. Right now, we meet every second Friday at 10 a.m. here next door. Everyone is invited to come to that meeting. Anyone is invited to come to that meeting. Our children is the most important product for Granville County. And so to keep them out of the juvenile system is our goal. We've had children that come and talk to us about autism, that have come and talked to us about what we are doing. Commissioner Williford has come to nearly every meeting.
All of them.
All of them. That's nearly every. Oh, I had to leave her. I'm sorry. He's contributing greatly to the conversation, and I want him to contribute more greatly to the money. And we appreciate that. And if you have any questions, we are now, in an era that we can provide treatment to juveniles. We have not done that before. One of our we went to a 2-year program of how we fund for 2 years physically, so we could have a continuum. We can now go into the homes and provide psychiatric care for students from youth villages, one of our people that we grant money to. They make reports consistently. We're on them for their reports. Melissa, our administrative person, is on them. We make visits. We have a monitoring committee run by Reverend Al Downing that does outstanding work to monitor to make sure the money's going to the right places. Our Trails for Success, we have one horse that no one can ride. And if it's a fundraiser, I may try to ride Shadow. But if you want to raise money, a lot of money for us, I would get on Shadow. But we had one young man who was having anger management problems. He was having difficulties in school. And he went to Trails for Success, and he and Shadow somehow got together. And he's doing much better in school. He's managing his behavior much better. By just talking to a horse and going around and doing certain chores on that particular place. So if there are any questions, I don't want to keep you because we want to let you get on with your major business you have to do. But we are thankful to you for what we have received, and we are good stewards on what we have received, and we want to continue to work with the youth in Granville County, because to me, youth in Granville County are some of the best youth in this country. You can tell by Aisha going to help out the world.
Reverend O, did you want to run through your PowerPoint presentation right quick, or are you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Eddie, would you assist with that, please, sir?
I'll try to wrap this up pretty quickly.
You're fine.
So if what you have here to start with the presentation is just a description of the programs that we currently fund. And as Reverend O mentioned, we're in a middle of a 2-year funding cycle. So these programs, with your consent, will be funded again for the 24-25 year. And so our first program is our only clinical-based program, Community Connections Program by Youth Villages, which does a high-fidelity intensive wraparound service. Some family counseling's involved, just kind of a really high-level service for our most at-risk youth. And so that kind of gives you a definition of that service. I'm not going to go word for word, but we're very fortunate to have those guys in this area. So we go to the next slide. They also do a secondary service for us called YV Lead Assessment. They do comprehensive clinical assessments. We started that about 5 or 6 years ago. And that's really been popular with getting referrals from schools, trying to figure out some of the kids that act out in schools, what's going on with them by doing these comprehensive clinical assessments. It's also become part of juvenile law now at disposition, that juveniles need to receive comprehensive clinical assessment. And they also have attached to that a placement specialist to make sure the services are coordinated and they get to where they need to be. Next slide. Traditional community service restitution. You probably have heard about that before. We're fortunate to have Ms. Puryear still involved with that. They've had a little bit of transition in trying to find a program coordinator, but hopefully she's going to find someone here shortly. But that's probably the most commonly used court sanction for our adjudicated youth. And typically they're, given some community service to ours to do. We've been really creative during COVID. It's not traditional hours of picking up trash. It can do, there's a multitude of things they can do in community service. So pretty much every county in the state has a community service restitution program. So next slide, positive action. Boys and Girls Club provides this skill building program. It's an evidence-based skill building program where kids learn a lot, right? There's different program modules that they go through. And so we've been very fortunate. They've had a little bit of turnover as well, but they seem to be stabilizing with Miss Brown now, and located right downtown Oxford, if you're familiar with their location, which I know many of you are. So next slide. Teen Court, you heard about Teen Court a little bit with our guest, and very proud of her accomplishments. And so Teen Court's another restorative justice program, also provided by 4-H under the direction of Ms. Puryear. There's two benefits to that. Obviously, the benefit of training those who want to pursue careers in the legal profession, and also those that get referred to Teen Court because they've done some type of act at school, typically, where we can divert the very minor offenses away from traditional juvenile court and let that be tied up with the more serious offenses. And so we're fortunate to have Teen Court. And then we finally have Trails to Success, which is our equine skill building program with Ms. Boswell down in the southern end of the county. She has been really, her and Debbie, her program coordinator, have really been knocking it out of the park here lately with the numbers of kids they have served. Again, they partner kids, they do group sessions with kids. And we've seen more juvenile court referrals to this program. Traditionally, it was a lot of mental health referrals, but lately they've been also getting a lot of juvenile court kids. And you heard about the story, the success story here recently. So I think that's our final program. Okay. And so you can see what the numbers they were projected to serve this year. I won't go through each one, but all of the programs are on target to serve what they projected, what they said they would serve. So we're very, very thankful for that. I have 7 other counties, and I can say that doesn't always exist in the other counties that I work in. So we're very, very thankful for the programs and the stability. There's been a lot of stability in this time of turmoil and transition with people leaving jobs. For the most part, we've been able to keep our folks in the programs, and I'm really lucky in Granville County for a rural setting to have the programs that we have. Next slide. Oh, questions? So,
I just have a comment. Yeah. Eddie, would you just tell the public quickly about where the referrals come from for these programs? I think that's important.
yes, thanks for that question. So it's, primarily I would say the schools right now, are probably the number one referring source to our programs, which is a good thing, right? They're finding these kids early on before they come involved with juvenile court. Then, of course, we get like community service, our main court sanction. Most all of those referrals are gonna come from juvenile court counselors. And then we get a lot of referrals from the SROs. We're very thankful for their participation. I would like to give a shout out to them in the sense that we have 4 or 5 SROs at every JCPC meeting, a minimum, from a multitude of agencies. And we don't have that in other counties. So they're always kind of giving us an update of what's going on in the schools and in the community. We get an occasional referral from DSS, and some mental health referrals, but, kind of, I guess, listed them in the order that we received the most, so.
Mr. Chairman, I've got one comment to make. I just am so impressed with the young people that come to work for me at ACIM that have to do community service. And I don't think I've had it. I think in all the time we've been getting these young people there, I one time had to ask somebody to come pick up the child, and the child was 5, and the judge had ordered 25 hours of community service because he was playing on somebody else's playground equipment. I think they had the wrong person there. I think it should have been a parent, not that child. He was working very hard, but he was so little we were running over him. So I had to ask for him, but never have I had to ask to come get another child that's been doing community service out there. They've all worked well, and they've all decided that maybe they do have a better life than what they thought they do after helping these people. So thank you.
But anyway, that's, thanks for the comments.
Mr. Chairman, just wanted to say to you, how much I appreciate your leadership. This is a tremendous need that we have in our community. And let me just say that from what we see in the early childhood stage of development, that this service is going to continue to be extremely important. Let me commend you on the wraparound service. Let me commend you on the piece of having the clinical assessment support. And I also want to say I looked at the data, and I think you're to be commended on how you've been able to work with these young people, and surely want to let you know that we really support this great effort. Thank you so much.
I also want to thank you because you appointed me from the court to be on the council. So I appreciate that, Commissioner.
Nick, thank you.
Mr. Chair. Ms. Cruz, how are you tonight?
Hey, Commissioner, how you doing?
73 juveniles were in an intake, but we only assessed 43. Is that because, why?
So when a juvenile is charged with a complaint, the court counselor has a discretion of closing that case out in some situations if it's a very minor offense. And so some of those complaints could have been closed. In that report, you'll also see that there's 2 different cohorts of kids. One is what we call receives the Yazzie pre-screen, which is kind of the lower risk pool of the court-involved kids. That makes sense. And then the more risky or the higher risk pool of kids receive the full assessment. So there's, I'm not sure, I don't know if we can go to that report, but you'll see 2 different numbers. I think they each were about 40. So, but
43,
so the numbers are not going to all match, I guess, to.
Got it.
Depends on the action of the court. And especially with, raising the age to 17 juvenile, there's gonna be different categories.
Doris.
that we have to deal with.
Yes. Yes, sir, Mr. Pinnick. Is the school system play a role at all in any of the intake interviewing, or at any point provide additional information?
Yes,
And the reason I'm asking that, Mr. Cruz, when I look over, when some of the statistics, particularly related to schools and aggression domain on page, on your second page of stats, it's kind of alarming. Aggression domain, 33% of Brownville County youth used a weapon versus 2%. That's the state average. That's alarming to me. So just wondering what role the school's playing.
yes, so they do play a role in, there's a consent for release of information signed, by the youth and family. And so, you know, going back to that statistic, a lot of the information, the court counselors obtain comes from the youth and family. A lot of it comes from their legal history. And then again, sometimes we're dealing with smaller numbers. So it is, I'm glad you did point that statistic out, because I do think, rates of aggression and, violent offenses are above, in some areas above the state average, but I also want to caution, and say that, you know, a lot of the kids that are, low risk, are not included in the overall picture, right? So when you take that number out, it elevates the percent, for those that are the highest risk. And a lot of counties process all the kids, right? They file a complaint in the school, they send it through juvenile court, and that kind of waters down their numbers sometimes. Where what we're doing a good job of, and we really, and Drew, you probably noticed this in Durham, is that keeping a lot of the low-level stuff out of juvenile court. But what sometimes that can do is elevate those percentages, so.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Our next two items are revolving around JCPC. First, we have to approve the county's juvenile justice crime prevention 2024-2025 funding program. And in order for us to get the 183,000, we'll go round it up to $181,000. We have to spend 37, we'll call it 38,000 of our own money. So with this board's approval, you've seen the requirement for the North Carolina local JCPs to submit a county plan that includes items as a county risk and needs assessment summary and the funding plan for the year and descriptions of the summary for clarification of the members. So is there any questions on that? We get a motion for approval?
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
We got a motion by Commissioner Cozart, seconded by Commissioner Jay. Are there any questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. I was an aye for the approve. The next item that we've got around JCPC is the 2024-2025 specified members list to be certified for the fiscal year. And you see before you each 7 districts and their appointees, and we're going to do that as a slate. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the slate as presented.
And if you, from the clerk, which we mentioned at the top of the meeting, how important clerks are, whispered in my ear, that it also has additional members not appointed by the districts that are from folks that are associated with our administration, specific positions, guardian ad litem, legal attorneys, and so on and so forth. So if we can include those members in the approval as well. I'm sorry, we got a motion and a
I made
second.
the motion, Mr. Chairman.
We got a motion by Commissioner Williford, and you're going to amend your motion to include?
Everything,
Yes.
the entire list is presented.
Okay.
Second.
And it's seconded by Commissioner Cozart. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Like sign, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. And one moment before we move off of JCPC, since we're here and we're gonna like, oh, did they
Should
leave?
just snuck out.
Oh, man, I was gonna talk about the Landises. The Landises and her mother missed this opportunity to hear about how 2,700 kids throughout the state of North Carolina this year applied to science and math, and there was 450 people that were accepted, 150 at Morganton and 300 in Durham. And we had 2 here from Granville County. And I'm so very proud
Very
that
impressive.
Aisha decided to be a dragon. You know, the unicorns are okay with their 30 years of history in Durham, but I've got a special place in my heart for dragons. So appreciate you gentlemen coming this evening. Thank you.
Thank y'all for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That'll bring us to our public comment section. And I'm going to butcher everybody's name, so just be on notice about that. And you've got 3 minutes to speak during the public comment session. And we'll take them as order as we signed up. And if you will, please, as you come forward, state your name and address for the record. And we've got Laura, and tell me your last name. Uchik.
Could you turn the green, push the button off? There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Laura Uchik. I'm a primary care provider. I live here in Oxford, and I'm also a member of Down Home, North Carolina. And I'm here with many of my companions to voice our support for Down Home's Be Smart, Expand Carts campaign. And I have a little handout about it that I'll pass out in a minute. This campaign was created by us, the members of Down Home Granville's chapter, as we surveyed and canvassed residents over the last year around the county. Many of our chapter members have also used CART service over the years. What we found is that CART's bus drivers are underpaid, leading to understaffing, resulting in infrequent service that is impractical to use. Wait times can be very long, sometimes even up to a week, needed ahead of time to schedule a ride. Many CARTS drivers are getting paid around $12 an hour. With more drivers, CARTS could provide much better service, lowering wait times, running more routes, and ensuring our tax money is well spent to provide a service that everyone in Granville County can use. Because of CART's lack of funding, Granville residents have trouble getting to health appointments, jobs, or to shop for groceries and other necessities. Our neighbors have to spend more money and time finding transportation around our region and face mounting inconvenience in their daily lives. We are pushing for Granville County Commission to invest $250,000 more next year to make CARTS more efficient, practical, and usable for everyone. This money would allow CARTS to hire and retain more drivers, invest in modern technology to be more efficient, and plan more routes to serve more of our neighbors. Because CARTS lack sufficient funding, they cannot hire and retain drivers to make the service practical. As a primary care provider, I work at a federally qualified health center in Vance, Granville, and Warren counties is where we're located. And in my 4 years working in this region, I feel like transportation is the #1 barrier to healthcare, unfortunately. I've seen patients wait in the rain for hours outside the office for a CARTS bus. I've had patients walk out in the middle of their visit because CARTS is outside demanding to leave and we aren't able to address important health issues. I've had patients not be able to see specialists or miss appointments for stress tests or mammograms because they don't have transportation, or because CARTS didn't come, or because they felt like the CARTS schedule would require them to miss work all day in order to be able to make that appointment. I've had patients who lost their job because their car broke down. They called CARTS. CARTS couldn't give them a ride till a week later. They subsequently were behind on their rent and then ultimately were evicted as a result. These small changes can be life-altering for people who are living with very little cushion, and we don't have a real public transit system in this county, and that's why we're really pushing to expand CARTS, because it's a great program, but it's not usable for people. So with all that in mind, I'm gonna let some other folks from Down Home share why this is important to them. And I really urge you all to consider our ask to increase that CARTS funding. I think it can be transformative, and it's really vitally important for our community, economically, socially, and physically. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time tonight. Real quick, I know you have more people from your organization coming forward. If you'll quickly, not within your time, which you've exceeded, tell us what Down Home, North Carolina is and why you're advocating for a tax increase.
We're not advocating for a tax increase. We're advocating for the use of budget funding towards public transit.
We're out of money, so you're advocating for a tax increase. So tell me about Down Home, North Carolina.
Down Home North Carolina is a statewide community organization made up of poor and working class folks and allies who are trying to make life more livable and fight for economic justice, education, housing, and healthcare, the things that are important for our communities.
Thank you. And this board has been very disappointed with the cart service in our area. We've been trying to get around town shuttles. Commissioner May especially has talked about in the southern end, and we've got a round town loop that has been grant funded through our senior center with our cart system. Obviously, it serves multiple areas. The Carter Regional Council, carts is a very big area. So I just wanted to make sure I knew who the organization was and why you all are advocating for a tax increase. So thank you very much.
The next speaker is Rakesh Patel. Please state your name and address when you come to the podium, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening, y'all. My name is Rakesh Patel. I live in Durham, but I work in Granville County. I've been working at Central Regional Hospital, which is in Butner, North Carolina, for the last 15 years. I've spent a majority of my waking hours in the county, and I've fallen in love with the city of Butner. I'm also part of Down Home, North Carolina, and I joined because I think there's a big need to advocate for the folks that live and work in rural counties. And this was a good way to help the folks that work at my hospital. We have at least 200 to 300 people that work at Central Regional Hospital that live in Granville County. And over the last month, I've had an opportunity to talk to folks at the Oxford Wine Festival when we were out there about 3 weeks ago to discuss what their thoughts and feelings were about carts. And they were very excited that we were taking on this challenge and advocacy for this. The folks that work at Central Regional Hospital, it being a hospital, know the importance of transportation. We have transportation folks who actually were so excited they were willing to take a job on the side to work for carts. When I told them what they were being paid, that was almost rate limiting. At $12 an hour, I don't think we could say that's going to be a family living wage. As a physician, we know that when you're sick and in a rural county, transportation is going to be quite important to get to your doctor's office. Now, we know that if folks can get to regularly scheduled appointments, then they'll get primary care. I'm an internist and pediatrician, and I know how important that is to get folks in for their primary care so they're not having to call EMS during an emergency. We also think that this will vitalize the economy and help folks get to their jobs, get to grocery stores, get to the pharmacy. And we know exactly how expensive it is right now to own, maintain, insure a vehicle. And if your vehicle breaks down, you're kind of in a bad way. There's not a lot of options. So I think that this would help the folks in this county, and I hope you help support this proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alexandra Fox.
So my name is Alexandra Fox, and I live in Butner at 311 12th Street. I'm a member of Down Home, and I'm also a licensed clinical social worker. I'm here to voice my support for Down Home's Be Smart, Expand Carts campaign. As some know all too well, substance abuse touches many in Granville County and this region. Our community is no different than others across the United States. Some of us struggle with addiction, or someone we care about does. And recovery is a priority for our community. Frank Sossaman, for example, our state representative, has held a number of forums on behavioral health and addiction this past year. In the substance abuse field, we talk about this idea that we want people to be able to access treatment from any door. This means no matter the access point, you're quickly connected to the right treatment for you. You could go to the emergency room and be connected, or your family doctor could direct you, or a church, a clinic, a local AA meeting, and so on. All these doors should be portals to the type of treatment you need. But you've got to be able to get to the door. We're different from a city where you could walk 2 or 3 miles and likely pass at least one AA meeting location. Here in Granville County, a major barrier to recovery is physically getting to the right spaces. A more accessible cart system might mean that some courageous person can attend their first AA meeting, or maybe another brave person can make the return to AA after some time away. Another idea in the substance abuse field is that to overcome addiction, you may need to find new people, places, and things so that you can build new routines around something beyond the substance. A reliable transportation system could facilitate this. Again, that person that makes it to that AA meeting, who knows the connections that they could make. They might find the right person there, the right sponsor, the right ally, the right spark to change their life and the life of their loved ones. Additional funding to CARTS could enhance access to treatment, and we could make better use of the resources we have. And increasing funding to CARTS can protect and sustain our most precious resource, the people that live here. Thank you.
For comments?
Dawn Whitelock. Whitlock.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Whitelock. I'm a resident here in Oxford at 420 Kingsbury Street. I am here to voice my support for Down Home's Be Smart, Expand CARTS campaign, and I'm going to speak from personal experience. We have all driven cars that are on their last legs, I'm sure. In my situation, I was living in Granville County, but in Franklinton at this time, and I called CARTS to get a ride to Revlon, and I had to be there at 6 in the morning. And they told me it was full, not, maybe we can squeeze you in or anything. It was just, we're full, no dice. And I promise you that nobody wants to get up at 5 o'clock to take somebody to work at 6. This is why I think we need to expand CARTS. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Duncan.
Good evening, y'all. Good evening. See some of my folks up there, Mr. Cruz, Jay. How y'all doing? All right. My name is Jason Duncan. I'm a resident of Granville County here in Oxford at 1217 The Road. Also a member of Down Home and vehicle house for Down Home here in Granville County. I'm here to also voice my support for Down Home's Be Smart, Expand CARTS campaign. At Down Home, we fought for the much needed renovations for Granville Street Park in Oxford last year. Also instrumental in actually getting our current sheriff elected and our current mayor elected. We work to put power in rural working people's hands and fight for better public funding of the resources that we depend on. Because CARTS lack sufficient funding, they cannot hire and retain drivers to make the service practical. Granville residents have trouble getting to health appointments, jobs, or to shop for groceries and other necessities. Our neighbors have to spend more money and time finding transportation around our region and face mounting inconveniences in their daily lives. This is especially important to me because of these stories that you've heard tonight. Not being able to actually get access to places, not being able to get to places, having to wake up like my friend said, having to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning because you got to be at work at 6. I've had personal experience as far as my mother. She was going to Advanced Granville. We started in the country, and she had to get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning just to be at school at 8. That makes no sense for us to have to do that. And public transit is incredibly important to many different aspects of life for regular working people in Granville County. And we look forward to working with you on fully funding this vital service. I just want to thank y'all for your time tonight. In all respect. Thank you.
Jesse Davey.
While the next speaker is coming up, the sheriff just informed me that there's a gray vehicle in the parking lot with Dickerson written on the side that has its lights left on and maybe unlocked or has windows down. So if that's your car, you might want to go check on it.
Jesse Dodge, 1100 Lakers Drive. I'm here to talk about the 2024 Granville real property appraisal that's been going on. I want to read you guys a couple excerpts from the 2024 Granville manual that our county commissioners put out for us. One of the statements says, these manuals should be developed in a manner that ensures that fair and equitable appraisals throughout the county. So everyone gets appraised equally, regardless of stature or size. Another thing that they said was there may be reasonable variations from market value and appraisal of property for tax purposes if these variations are uniform. And the North Carolina Constitution prohibits unfair taxation by local jurisdictions. That being said, my group, the group that I'm part of, the South Granville Community Alliance, sat down with the pleasure of Mr. Drew Cummings, the town manager over here. Thank you for setting that up, by the way, Drew. Sat down with the tax appraisal and the tax office in order to discuss some of these things. So we better understood what the rules were for appraisals and what comps were acceptable, et cetera, et cetera. So that being said, we went through and looked at a number of properties of varying sizes in order to understand whether or not these are equitable across the board. And I presented in my pamphlet, which I will give to you guys, examples of mobile homes, single family homes, and land, where it shows that this appraisal did not happen appropriately, okay? I have modular homes here that are same dwelling, same grade, very, very similar in heated square feet, both in Granville Ridge, where one was evaluated at $381,539, and the other was evaluated at $232,391. That's a difference of $149,000, $140,000 for similar properties. I have an example of small single-family homes, dwellings the same, grades the same, heated square footage is within 200 square feet of each other. One was appraised at $339,401. The other was appraised at $260,000. That's a difference of $79,000 of homes that are very similar as far as size, land, and within the accepted 10-mile comp buffer. We have an example of land here, which is really egregious. The land is the same. The cleared acre value was 24 for one and 16,000 for the other per acre. And then the wooded was 15,000 for one and 5,000 for the other, thereby making a difference in 1,499,126 for one property and 2.5 million for the other. Now, here's the funny part is the 528 acre property appraised for the 2.5 million, 110 acre property appraised for 1.5 million. I mean, you're talking 5 times the difference in less than a little over $100,000 in value, or a little over $1 million in value difference. That doesn't seem fair to me. I want to read you something else too. There's Article 19, Statute 105-317C from North Carolina law, North Carolina General Statutes, and it says the value, standards, and rules required by subdivision B1 shall be reviewed and approved by the Board of County Commissioners before January 1 of the year they are applied. In our North Carolina 2024 pre-eval manual, it states the exact same statute, the 105-1317C, and it states it as the scheduled value, standards, and rules required by subdivision B1 above shall be reviewed and approved by the Board of County Commissioners.
You're done. Thank you very much. You've exceeded your 3 minutes. Thank you very much. You've exceeded your 3 minutes. Have a seat.
Elena Wilson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elena Wilson. My address is 1049 Bluebell Lane in Wake Forest. I'm here tonight to ask Granville County Commissioners to reconsider the 2024 appraisal results that were completed by Pearson Appraisal. The citizens in this county have regularly questioned the results of the appraisals done on their properties, much like our neighbors in Franklin County, who relied on the same company to complete the appraisals. Many of our homes have been appraised far beyond what real estate professionals in our area say we could even sell our homes for. This leads us to being overtaxed at a time when many of us are struggling to keep up with how inflation is at the moment, wondering how we will continue to meet the demand of groceries, gas, and living. Much of the data shared in these appraisals has shown major discrepancies between parcels that are nearly identical. Many of us, including myself, have filed appeals on these values, left to defend ourselves over gross inflation of our homes, forced to become real estate professionals to plead our case, yet not even received an acknowledgement of the appeal or what steps the commissioners are taking to ensure they have accurate data. I'm here on behalf of many of Granville County citizens and my neighbors to ask that you move to demand that Pearson reevaluate each parcel in this county. I applaud the Franklin County Commissioners for holding Mr. Pearson accountable for the stress he has caused to their residents by contributing inaccurate and inconsistent data, and I am here to plead that you do the same. Thank you for your time.
And Commissioner Sue Hinman, you had signed up for public comment. We will make you get up and go to the podium, so please do it from where you're at.
Well, thank you. I'm Sue Hinman from Area Congregation Ministry. My address is 515 Goshen Street in Oxford. We were blessed on Thursday, May 2nd. Sunrock Gravel donated 2 dump trucks full of gravel to fill the potholes in our driveway so we could feed the needy in Granville County. When the first truck was trying to unload, because we had such beautiful green trees, the dump truck took out all the internet and phone lines for several blocks. And so unfortunately, the gravel got dumped right there. But fortunately for us, there was a deputy that was driving by as this happened. The deputy immediately called 911. With under 7 minutes, we had Granville Rural Fire Department there, and Doug Dickerson was there also. He came in along with the fire truck drivers. They were able to block traffic until they were able to find out if, once Oxford Fire Department got there, to make sure that they had no live wires there. I think they were fantastic. Sunrock also came out to make sure everybody was safe and that the gravel got taken care of. Later that day, after the young men that were driving the fire truck from Granville Rural, they came back by because they knew that my car was on the other side of that pile of gravel. They brought shovels and they were willing to move that gravel out of the driveway so that I could get through, which luckily we had somebody come by at 5:30 that night and move the gravel. But it was just amazing to me of these people that were willing to come help, and a charity that we weren't even open that day, but it was willing to help these people. So I want to thank everybody in Granville County, the Sheriff's Department, the fire departments, Oxford Fire Department, and also the people that the internet lines, Spectrum Internet, that they came out and they fixed those wires. I mean, I've never seen anybody move so fast in my life. And everything was taken care of, including the down telephone line, or telephone pole. My time is up, so thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment for this evening. Our next item on the agenda is a public hearing. And the purpose of this public hearing is, and Joe Stallings, if you'll come forward, please. Purpose of this public hearing is to amend the Nugget Comfort CDBG, which is the Community Development Block Grant project as originally submitted. The company now plans to create 43 new jobs, with 51% going to persons residing in households of low to moderate income. These jobs will have an average annual wage of $40,930. Nugget Comfort will maintain their original expansion plans and original investment commitment of $4,320,000. Mr. Stallings.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commission. Chairman said this is a part of the Nugget CDBG project. I'm here along with David Hartigan, Grants Administrator, to give you a little bit of an overview and background of the item and to note the requirements that are required under the public hearing advisory for North Carolina General Statute 158.
Joe, with that, I will open this public hearing. And proceed.
As it was stated, it's really just a matter of changing the 46 jobs to 43. There are no other changes. Agreement. Once we get this public hearing over, we'll make those changes and move forward, and the project will commence the original plan. And any questions David is also here to help answer since he'll be administrating the grant.
Is there anyone wishing to speak on behalf of this matter? If so, please come forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record. And the floor is now open for those willing to speak on this matter. All right, seeing none, do the board members have any questions?
Young man, excuse me, Chairman.
Yes.
So if I understand it correctly, no more additional cost. It's just merely notating additional, employees will be added.
Reduction.
Actually, the company has actually created 95 jobs. And I noticed they didn't have the low and moderate income requirement that is necessary for these federal funds. It's 60% of the jobs have to persons in low and moderate income households. So I went and talked to the new manager, and we came up with a letter we sent to Commerce and explained the situation to them. They've created great jobs, but most of them are not low and moderate income jobs. So I went through and found a way to do it by hires by date and to count only those jobs that are production jobs that were mentioned in the original application. And if we could eliminate 3 jobs, we could get above 51% low and moderate income, which is a federal requirement. And the state agreed with that and said we could do that. We didn't lose any jobs, we're just not counting them all for this project.
Administrative actions, what you're doing. In essence, no additional funding, administratively correcting it, so in jobs with the grant.
And I was afraid we might lose some funds, but we did not.
So fine. Thank you. Thank you.
Do any other board members have any questions? All right, I would declare the public hearing closed. Any other board need clarification? All right. What is the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, we approve as recommended by the Economic Development.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Williford to approve the recommendation for our Economic Development Director. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, it's the pleasure of the board. Oh, excuse me, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. So now we've got a budget presentation by our manager, Mr. Drew Cummings. In accordance with General Statute, North Carolina General Statute 159, the county manager submitted budget must be presented to the Board of Commissioners no later than June the 1st. The manager must also file a copy with the clerk to the board to make it available to all news media in the county. And the manager must submit a budget message to introduce and summarize the budget. The floor is yours, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening to you and to the commissioners and to members of the public in the audience tonight or who will be watching this online in the near future. We're not quite streaming live yet, but we will be soon. I would say it gives me great pleasure to stand before you with this recommended budget, and there is a sense of satisfaction I get from working week in and week out with you, with dozens of our staff, and with members of the public to try to shape an organization and annual budgets that can meet the community's needs. But it is serious and difficult work. Still, I'm glad that we have made it to this point and glad to be presenting a budget that is broadly reflective of commissioners' desires for this community and this organization, a budget that I believe will help get Granville up to speed. On our agenda tonight, will begin with a recap of this year's budget, as well as the big rocks your staff have been moving this year. I will review the timeline we have followed and will be following for development and approval of this budget, Then there is the financial backdrop for this budget and the key needs and issues driving the proposed budget. I will highlight all key aspects included in the budget and wrap up by boiling this budget proposal down to its essential components for all to see. We kept the tax rate steady this year, and in fact, in every year since the last reval in 2018. In the end, particularly due to some unforeseen circumstances that arose very close to budget adoption last year, the county had to appropriate more of our fund balance to balance this year's budget than I would have liked. Also, had we known how poorly sales tax and our Medicaid hold harmless funds from the state were going to perform, we would likely have had to raise taxes in the current year or make harmful cuts to key county operations. In the current year, we held the fire tax steady at 6 cents, and I will propose keeping it there, even considering the recently completed reval. In the current year, we provided nearly $1 million in additional operating funds to Granville County Public Schools, and I will note that about 25% of that funding gets passed along to charters throughout the region attended by Granville County students. And finally, we made major improvements this year to our public safety salaries because we had no choice. The competition for new recruits and to retain experienced public safety talent was fierce and actually still is. Of note, our raises were greatest at the lower end of the salary scale because that is where our recruitment challenges were most pronounced. In the current fiscal year, we began adding to our employee 401k match offering, an area where our benefits lag far behind our competitors, and I hope we can continue that movement in next year's budget. Additionally, until this year, we were charging employees over $12,000 a year to get health insurance for their families. For obvious reasons, not very many were taking us up on it. I'm not sure how the others were insuring their families, but I hope you will agree with me. That situation, among other salary and benefit considerations, was actively harming us in our recruitment efforts. The 4% cost of living adjustment and 4% merit pool may have appeared generous, but looked at another way, even a top performing employee was barely staying ahead of last year's high inflation. Finally, we reached a crisis point with DSS recruitment and retention this past year, with neighboring jurisdictions to the south offering signing bonuses and starting salaries $10,000 to $15,000 higher than ours. We made some mid-year adjustments, and I was glad we were able to do that. But you don't need me to tell you that plenty of people are perfectly happy to commute an extra 30, 45, or even 60 minutes a day for that kind of raise. Happily, the pay increases seem to have had the desired effect, and I was talking to the DSS director just a few days ago, and for the first time in a long time, DSS is close to being fully staffed. As just discussed, employee pay and benefits have continued to be a primary focus for me and for commissioners. That commitment comes at some cost, but I would point out that not trying hard to keep up would also involve a significant cost to this community. Relatively high turnover rates would go even higher, and we would have much more trouble filling those vacancies. A further challenge this year has been the paltry growth of sales tax revenue, which has grown at less than half of the 8% growth rate we and others across the state had predicted. Slumping sales tax growth has also contributed to greatly reduced Medicaid hold harmless payments from the state, which we budgeted flat, but which have gone backwards nearly $1 million. These lost revenues were revenues we hoped would replace some of the one-time funding we used to balance the current year's budget. And while we hope these revenues will do better next year, we have to budget more conservatively in light of where we are right now. On the upside, we have successfully completed our transition to enterprise fleet management and continue to reap the operational and financial benefits of that program, including approximately $250,000 in savings in the first year. We also rebid our landfill operations contract this year. This was an extremely complex process, but along with the adjustments in our solid waste fees and tipping fees charged at the landfill, this new contract will help put our solid waste enterprise fund truly in the black for the first time, including the creation of reserves for future expansions at the landfill. Among others, I want to thank Environmental Services Director Jason Falls for managing current operations and this extremely complex RFP process while working 3 days a week for Granville County. Your management team has managed a large number of critical department head transitions this year, including hiring a new economic development director, social services director, chief financial officer, veteran service officer, and managing the recent departure of our 911 emergency communications director. We have staffed up our Department of Social Services to meet the additional workload entailed by Medicaid expansion, though I'm happy to note that these positions are fully funded through additional reimbursements and funding from the state. We have done much work drafting a development agreement for roughly a quarter of the land within our Triangle North Business Park, a deal we hope will close this summer. Waterline extensions are underway, paid for entirely with funds received as part of the American Rescue Plan Act. Furthermore, with an $11.5 million appropriation from our state legislature, Vance Granville Community College is forging ahead with design of a new advanced manufacturing center for the park. Overall, I know we are all happy to see our primary business park finally being developed. Your staff, especially Deputy County Manager Karina Weichel, have continued to shepherd along broadband expansion work in the county, work which involves a complicated web of state officials, internet service providers, federal regulations, and citizens wanting to know when fiber will come to their house. I'm happy to say that hundreds, if not thousands, of homes have already been able to connect to high-speed internet as a result of these efforts, and thousands more connections are in the works over the next few years. Commissioners and staff and the county's financial advisors have worked hard over this past year to develop a draft capital improvement plan, or CIP, that is very near completion. Adoption of this pending CIP will represent vastly improved and focused planning for building and financing facilities that will benefit generations of Granvillians to come. I will share more about this proposed CIP later in the presentation, but I would like to end the review of the current year by observing how happy we all are that work on the North Granville Senior Center is proceeding. This is an excellent example of the kind of capital project we hope to continue investing in. The average household in Granville County will pay less than $1 a month so that seniors and other residents in a large section of our county can have a vibrant and much improved activity hub. So overall, county staff have been extremely busy this year and have achieved a remarkable number of key milestones for the county. I'm proud of them and the progress we have made together. The development of each year's budget takes a full 5 to 6 months worth of work. Earnest work begins with the development of departmental budgets in January. Each department's budget is gone over in great detail with finance and administration during February and March. And during the second part of March and the month of April, we revisit all revenue trends and start to formulate a recommended budget. In the month of April, I also sit with each of you to try to make sure that county administration has heard your preferences clearly and that we are bringing you the budget you think the county needs. Though it would require significant new investment by the county and thus by county residents, I believe that the budget I'm presenting tonight is the budget the county needs and is the budget that commissioners directly or indirectly have indicated they desire. That said, it's not possible for an $85 to $90 million a year organization to get all the details just right. And I know that commissioners and members of the public will have many questions about this proposed budget. To discuss and answer those questions, we have 3 full-day budget work sessions scheduled for next Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and also a public hearing 2 weeks from tonight, where members of the public can comment on the proposed budget. 2 weeks after that, this board will hopefully adopt the final budget for fiscal year 24-25, and right up through the point of adoption, they may consider and make changes to the budget. Now I want to share with you some important financial and demographic backdrops to this year's budget. These include decelerating revenue growth, rapid growth in property values, and the significant levels of inflation and income growth since our last reval. Outside of the property tax, which we can control, sales taxes are the next largest revenue source for Granville County. They do continue to increase, but the growth this year and the growth projected for next year are far below the 7-year averages shown. We can hope for a miraculous recovery of sales tax, but as a wise person once said, hope is not a strategy, so we will budget conservatively and hope for the best. Medicaid hold harmless funds, which are a combined product of sales taxes and Medicaid-related payments the state makes back to the federal government, have actually gone backwards to the tune of roughly $1 million this year, with a further drop anticipated next year. So what are the implications of these trends? Well, the fund balance replenishment we had hoped for through continued growth of these revenue sources simply did not occur. And in anything but the short run, one-time revenues must be replaced with recurring revenues or expenditures must be cut. That brings us inevitably to our property tax, the only recurring revenue we truly control. This year's reval represents an important opportunity to reset. Why is it an important opportunity to reset? Because tax values and the tax rate have remained absolutely flat for the past 6 years while incomes have risen. Because inflation and the cost of doing business has gone up sharply. Because the cost of hiring and retaining good people has gone up sharply. Because a growing and aging population that is no longer quite so rural is demanding more and better services. And because the opportunity to position Granville County for its best future is, in my view, also at stake. That is why it is such an important opportunity to reset. This chart is a good demonstration of how, since the last reval, property taxes have covered a lower and lower percentage of our county budgets. This is inflation at work, not a county government gone wild. A paramedic today costs a lot more than a paramedic did 6 years ago. In 2022 alone, Wake County offered their EMS employees average pay raises of over 20%. One may say, we're not Wake County. True enough, but we compete with them whether we want to or not. Anyone paying attention knows that paramedics and law enforcement officers and firefighters and every other kind of employee is happy to drive 30 or 40 minutes down whatever road they have to in order to make that much more money. As I mentioned earlier, DSS departments in adjacent counties have been offering signing bonuses of $5,000 and up, as well as salaries starting significantly above ours. We see it every day, and in my view, we have no alternative but to try to compete, as we did with some mid-year DSS salary adjustments and recruitment and retention bonuses this year. That said, we are still operating lean and mean in many, many areas of the county government. We have 3 full-time people and a handful of part-time cleaners responsible for over 400,000 square feet of building space. And we're down one of those full-time people who doubled his pay recently when he shifted over to the private sector. We have a 3-person HR department doing everything under the sun, also down 1 employee. We have many other 1-, 2-, and 3-person departments carrying out critical work for the county, departments where the loss of even a single person can mean very significant risk for county operations. As you know, we did a survey of county employees recently, and the #1 emotion reflected back at us was exhaustion. As a manager, when I see and hear feedback like that, I know that we all need to pay attention and proceed with caution and with thoughtfulness regarding the health of our organization. In terms of the portion of our budget being carried by the property tax, even the budget I'm proposing for next year does not take us back to where we were in the year or 2 after the last reval. Again, important context for the decisions in front of us. While the Office of State Management and Budget predicts more modest growth, here in Granville County, we have a heightened awareness of the new subdivisions coming out of the ground and being approved in all of our larger communities. In the south, some development will have to wait for the completion of the large sewer lines being constructed under I-85, but based on conversations with our towns and cities, even a fairly conservative estimate could result in 10,000 more residents living here by the end of this decade. This too should spur us to consider the infrastructure that will be necessary for our growing population. So, how do we decide what Granville County must fund and should fund now or in any year? We know and accept that there are a number of critical services and functions that we as taxpayers and governing officials of this county are obliged to provide at an adequate level. Adequate, of course, is subject to interpretation, And our consensus definition is what we're always zeroing in on through all of our conversations together. We have to maintain stable county operations, which means we need to maintain sufficient staff and adequate facilities needed to provide programs and services, many of which are mandated by the state statute. I've already noted some of the difficulties we face in recruiting and retaining talent, which is obviously a major part of maintaining a stable operation. If we lose 20 or 30% of our staff in a given area, the remaining staff will burn out even more quickly and will soon be looking for ways to exit. And believe me, in this job market with unemployment at historic lows, there are always ways to exit. We have to provide adequate fire protection, law enforcement, and EMS funding across 532 square miles. I know we pride ourselves in our self-sufficiency, but when your loved one is having a heart attack, you do not want to hear that we don't have enough ambulances to get to your part of the county quickly. Our tax base has to provide sufficient funds for over 8,500 school children. If we don't pay enough to hire and retain good teachers, who, by the way, also work in a regional market, guess what? They vote with their feet. And we don't even have warm bodies, never mind talented teachers, to make sure the next generations of Granvillians can succeed. Additionally, even if we're not building new schools, we have to maintain the 1 million+ square feet of building space our students are currently learning in. The county is on the hook for all of that. The same is largely true for Vance Granville Community College, the post-secondary destination of the largest percentage of our high school graduates. We pay for 25% of main campus expenses and 100% of the South Campus expenses, and it adds up. Finally, developing and funding and implementing a plan to meet our community's longer-term capital needs is also an important part of this proposed budget. A decent retirement plan is an important part of any employer's benefit package, and a 401k plan is an important part of that. Even with the current year increase to 2%, Granville County is still well behind our competitors in terms of 401k matching. In the last 6 months, we almost lost a critical hire because of this. To continue slowly moving us towards a place where our retirement benefits do not actively harm our recruitment efforts, I am recommending our 401k match increase from 2 to 3% next year. In addition to the proposed increase in 401k match, I am proposing a merit pool offering raises up to 4% for truly exemplary work. As the leader of an organization filled with many wonderful, hardworking people, I believe it is critical to offer merit raises for employees who distinguish themselves in their service to the community and the organization. Unfortunately, part of our baseline budget for next year has to account for significant increases in what it costs to insure our employees. Healthcare costs continue to rise. The basic cost to offer our employees the same set of health benefits next year has risen 8%. Granville County, which is self-insured, also had a very rough year for claims, which in turn means that the reserves needed to cover next year's estimated claims must also go up. One might say, well, just cut benefits. We already don't have particularly generous benefits. It still costs over $9,000 a year for an employee of Granville County to cover a spouse and children. We lost a critical department head hire this year who had already verbally committed to the job, but when she reviewed our benefits package, realized that even with a decent pay increase, our health benefits, such as they are, meant her total compensation would not increase at all. I say that to say that I do not believe offering decent health care to our employees is a luxury. It is a necessity. It is also the right thing to do. With fire protection and our still relatively new fire district tax, I'm proposing, despite a revenue neutral rate of 3.9 cents, that we stay with the current fire district tax of 6 cents. Maintaining that tax rate will provide our 12 volunteer fire departments with approximately $1.3 million more to provide fire protection across our 532 square miles. The era of being able to do this on the cheap is over. The average age of volunteer firefighters is going up, and there are fewer of them. The vast majority of our current fleet of fire trucks, though lovingly maintained, is over 20 years old. Our fire protection system desperately needs this additional investment. And what would we get with that additional fire tax revenue? Although the process of hiring and deploying weekday fire drivers is still ramping up and will continue throughout next year, those departments using this allowance the most are already seeing shorter response times. Up to $40,000 is available to each department to ensure we are leveraging the greatest amount of state and federal grant funding possible. Up through this year, for example, we've been leaving approximately half of that money on the table every year for lack of adequate matching funds. Because it is so important to our broader medical response system that our firefighters be trained and available medical responders, the Fire Commission has recommended raising the allocation for participating departments to $20,000 per year. As approved by the Fire Commission and County Commissioners, enhancement funding allocations vary based on area, call volume, tax value, population, and so forth, and over time will enable departments shouldering a heavier and steadier load for residents of this county to pay for the additional staffing and equipment necessary to carry that load more sustainably. Additionally, in the coming year, the Fire Commission will continue to look at use of fire tax funding reserves to complete the fire coverage map for Granville County. This slide simply shows the increasing revenue going into fire protection over the past several years with the institution of the fire tax. With the exception of the municipal departments who receive limited support from the fire tax for calls that they run out into the county, all of our volunteer departments now have the potential to draw down 2 or 3 or even 4 times the revenue available to them 3 years ago. That may seem like a lot, but consider that prior to the institution of the fire tax, departments were running for an entire year on 80-odd thousand county dollars, maybe 5 or 10,000 in donations, and whatever grant dollars they could figure out how to match. Again, with aging volunteers, fewer volunteers, aging apparatus, and more complex fires and emergencies to respond to, I firmly believe this additional funding is essential if we want our fire departments to be there when we need them. Granville County is fortunate to have a healthy local hospital. We're one of a shrinking handful of communities in the state of North Carolina that has such an institution. We're doubly fortunate that Granville Health System agreed a number of years ago to operate the EMS system for Granville County, and we are triply fortunate that they are able to help support this operation financially. Were Granville County to have to operate this system on our own again, we would be looking at several multiples of the numbers up on the screen right now. In addition to the significant increases in operational funding over the past several years, the county continues to invest in a newer and larger fleet of ambulances. Without these enhancements and with the growth in our population, response times would continue to get longer and longer. The increases shown in fiscal 24-25 include 1 additional ambulance for our system, as well as 3/4 of a year worth of 24/7 staffing for that ambulance. I would remind commissioners and the public that for every 24/7 position required, nearly 5 employees are required to fill that position. As such, putting 2 people on this new ambulance day in and day out for a year requires 9 new EMTs and or paramedics to be hired. Emergency medical response is a necessity, but it's not a cheap service to provide. And now an ever-present and incredibly important part of this conversation, which is the Board of County Commissioners' support for education. As you all know, K-12 education in the state of North Carolina is largely state funded. Typically, state funding makes up about 60% of the school's funding, federal funding about 10%, with local and other funds making up the remainder. I will note that the state has historically not been terribly generous with teacher pay, lottery fund distributions, recognition of advanced degrees, and other aspects, important aspects of school finance. Granville County Commissioners have sought over time to provide substantial additional funding to the schools. And since the advent of charter schools, a large and growing portion of that funding has also been transferred on a per pupil basis to charter schools attended by Granville County students. As you can see in this table, the total number of school-age students enrolled in traditional public schools and charters has remained fairly steady over the past 5 years. County funding, however, has regularly increased each year by an average of roughly $840,000 per year. My recommended budget for next fiscal year includes an increase in current expense funding of nearly $1 million, though $295,000 for SROs that used to flow through the school's budget will now simply flow straight through the sheriff's office. Additional recommended funding for next year includes the third year of a 3-year commitment commissioners previously agreed to help with salary compression. Along with fulfilling that $499,000 commitment, I'm also recommending $494,000 in additional funding to reimburse the schools for increased benefit costs and to help make sure locally funded positions receive the same 4% pay raises funded this year by the state. This recommended operating funding for the schools represents 22 cents of next year's tax rate, more than a third of the total burden for our community. I don't point this out because I think it's inappropriate. I point it out to make more obvious the level of local commitment to our schools and also the level of interest our commissioners take in the strategic decision-making of the Board of Education. In addition to the significant increase in current expense funding for the schools, I'm recommending that the county make significantly larger investments in meeting long-deferred capital needs in our public school system. I believe commissioners and the Board of Education agree that the likely need for new schools is small, but the need to keep up the schools we have is very important to our children's success. This year, in consultation with the superintendent, I am recommending nearly a 75% increase in the long-term dedicated funding for building maintenance, including funding for more regular replacement of roofs and HVAC systems, many of which are long overdue. With the schools maintaining over 1 million square feet of buildings, the funding provided historically has simply not been enough to adequately maintain the spaces where our children learn. And I'm fearful that continuing this approach would lead to numerous school-level crises that could significantly disrupt learning for large numbers of students. Debt service for schools is declining, and that decrease helps pay for some of the increased capital funding. Additional funding for the purchase of longer-lasting assets, such as roofs and HVAC systems, would come through dedicated funding in our soon-to-be-adopted capital improvement plan. In and through this proposed budget, I believe the Granville County Board of County Commissioners, acting on behalf of the citizens of this county, will continue to appropriately uphold their part of this bargain by committing a truly significant portion of the funding at their disposal to help provide Granville County students an excellent education. We look forward to further partnerships and further exploration of ways the multi-year trend in enrollment may possibly be reversed. It will require both boards to entertain some truly challenging thoughts and be ready to work thoughtfully together for the benefit of this community. I know that school resource officers, also known as SROs, continue to be a much discussed topic in our community. Though my recommended budget does not propose an increase in the number of county-funded SROs, we very much hope that additional state funding will become available this coming year to supplement local resources. Ongoing conversations with our municipalities are bearing fruit, and in addition to providing SROs to schools in their communities, I hope the municipalities can also begin to fund a portion of those positions through their local budgets. I'm thankful to Sheriff Fountain for making sure that the staff identified to serve this critical function in schools receive appropriate training, and we're working together to make sure that the staff that have been dedicated to this function are present all day, every day in those schools. As noted in this recommended budget, we also continue to meet our obligations to Vance Granville Community College. Through this recommended budget, we would meet the full facility operations request for both campuses in which we have a stake, which is 25% of the main campus needs and 100% of the South Campus needs. Deferred capital needs at the main campus continue to grow, and for several years running, Vance County has been unable to fund any portion of this request. As of today, those deferred and ever more urgent needs total just under $6 million. Though I have discussed this situation with President Damaris and Vance County Manager Renee Perry, I'm not certain how or when the two counties will move forward with a concrete plan to meet these needs. What I cannot do in good faith is bring forward a fiscal 24-25 budget and also a 10-year capital improvement plan where we do not budget to meet this very clear capital need on our horizon. As such, the proposed CIP and the additional dedicated funding for capital contained in it contains $400,000 per year for Vance Granville Community College's facility needs. Next year, those funds would allow us to meet the larger facility maintenance needs at the South Campus. But beyond next year, this $400,000 per year will represent a source of funding for Granville County to meet at least its portion of the broader capital needs on Vance Granville's main campus. Talking about capital investments in the schools and community college leads me to another critical part of this budget, the proposed 10-year capital improvement plan and associated funding plan. It was apparent to me when I started with Granville County 18 months ago that there were many pent-up capital needs across the community. There was a long-delayed North Granville Senior Center. We hadn't set aside enough funding for a landfill expansion. We needed more fire stations. There were no and still aren't any recreational facilities in numerous areas of the county, including some of the fastest growing areas. Numerous county facilities needed major work or to be demolished altogether, and the courthouse, despite seeing greatly increased traffic, had not been expanded or renovated since the 1980s. Here and there, we had squirreled away little bits of money to help fund some of those things, but never enough to actually complete them, and not through a process that prioritized projects and figured out what level of and configuration of funding would actually allow any of these investments to move forward. Our staff and commissioners have spent a great deal of time this past year working with our financial advisors to improve upon that state of affairs. Our current debt service payments total about $9 million a year, primarily for schools, but also for our law enforcement complex. Luckily for us, that debt service starts to taper off quickly in the coming years. By maintaining that same level of funding dedicated to capital and dedicating 2 additional pennies to this capital improvement plan, Granville County can fund a wide variety of much needed capital projects moving forward. You can see here the critical county projects proposed to be funded through this plan. Again, with good planning, careful execution, and 2 additional pennies on our tax rate dedicated to capital, this CIP is an investment we can make in the future of Granville County. It is an investment I think we should make in the future of Granville County. A capital plan is just that, a plan, but also a sophisticated one with funding and logistics behind it. Commissioners have looked at about 5 different versions of this CIP, and staff have looked at many more. We have a few final tweaks to make, but I anticipate that commissioners will approve a finalized version of this plan early in the next fiscal year. Beyond much needed funding increases for fire protection and EMS, beyond providing for reasonable increases in operating funds for the schools, beyond providing more planfully and adequately for the capital needs of the schools and Vance Granville Community College, beyond a funded capital improvement plan investing in the future of our county, beyond basic merit pay and a small increase in retirement benefit that still leaves us lagging behind our neighbors, beyond meeting those basic needs and obligations of our community and our employees, there are very few expansions of any sort proposed in this recommended budget. There are a very small number of new positions proposed, a remarkably small set of department expansions, and not a whole lot else. For staffing, I am proposing the creation of 3 new positions, each of which is either partially or fully covered by outside revenues. The Assistant Director for Development Services, critical for our succession planning and also for implementation of the proposed CIP, will be covered 100% with fee revenue from new development around the county. To have no assistant or deputy director in an organization of over 100 employees involving a complex web of state and federal regulations and requirements is short-sighted and, in my professional opinion, puts the county at risk. And hence I am recommending a new deputy director for DSS. In addition, the social work program administrator position will provide leadership for a division that has never had one, as well as providing a wide range of critical functions across the department. And both of these employees' positions will be reimbursed at least a 50% rate by the state. One other small change in our budget is to add small wage increases for hard-to-fill hourly positions. In many cases, take hourly election workers as an example. Paying so little that we can't fill positions at all or have to scrape the bottom of the barrel, again, puts our county at risk in ways that I do not think are wise. In addition to some smaller tweaks and simplifications to our overall fee schedule, there are also a few notable changes that I do think it is appropriate to draw your attention to. Small increases are proposed this coming year for both solid waste and stormwater fees. On the solid waste side, both households that have trash pickup service and those that rely solely on county convenience centers will have small increases of between $3 to $9 per year. As noted, these are part of the revenue stream that will allow our solid waste enterprise fund to be truly self-sustaining in years to come. Stormwater fees have been flat for over a decade and historically have never covered the cost of watershed protection services provided by the county and Granville-Vance Public Health Department. All of the basic services are provided countywide, with additional services and administrative requirements within the Falls watershed being covered by significantly higher fees for residents in that southern third of the county. Here too, the annual increase in fees, which are tied to the size, location, and amount of impervious surface associated with a project, is relatively small. In addition to the minimal staffing additions mentioned a few slides ago, there are a smattering of very minor expansions within departmental budgets, and there are important reasons for each. We have $5,000 for our portion of a seasonal 4-H position, most of which is funded by the state and part of which will also be covered by Person County. We have $10,000 so we can provide basic safety supplies in county buildings, including periodic replacement of defibrillator batteries when they need them. The IT security measures were mostly planned, but a significant intrusion into the county network this past February strengthened our resolve to make some additional targeted investments to enhance our IT security, harden our network, and improve our recovery capabilities. Though this budget is not able to fund the vast majority of proposed expansions from the Granville County Sheriff's Office, I do think a modest increase in the sheriff's overtime budget would put that part of his budget more in line with historical averages. Generally, our outside agency partners are held completely flat in this year's proposed budget. Per a multi-year funding agreement, however, Granville-Vance Public Health will receive an additional $25,000. This brings their total annual funding from Granville County to $950,000, which I will remind everyone is a fraction of what we would be paying if we had to support our own in-house public health department. During COVID, the county gave area congregations in ministry an additional $40,000 in ARPA funding to help provide additional food aid through its Backpack Food Buddies program, which provides enough food for healthy weekend meals for children who receive the bulk of their weekly nutrition at school. ACIM has asked the county to continue at that COVID funding level, and while I'm not sure we can fund all of that request, I am recommending an additional $15,000 on top of the normal $10,000 to try to make sure no child in Granville County goes hungry. Finally, a modicum of support for the Camp Butner Historical Society will help ensure the survival of this small museum commemorating and carrying forward the important military history of the southwestern part of our county. And I see the CARTS advocates are still here. After a bump in funding last year, next year's funding for the Car Area Rural Transportation System, or CARTS, is back down to historic levels, with identical contributions being made by Franklin, Vance, and Warren counties. Granville County's contribution is for a combination of administrative costs and a portion of the cost to replace some of their aging fleet of buses, most of which have over 250,000 miles on them. Additionally, a state grant flows through Granville County to help pay for the Oxford Loop, and conversations with CARTS continue as we look for funding for a similar level of service for our South Granville communities. Residents and commissioners in the southern part of the county have had growing concerns for many years about road capacity, dangerous intersections, and growth. A $40,000 match from Granville County will help leverage over $200,000 from the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, or CAMPO, to take a careful look at traffic and other interrelated systems in the southeastern portion of Granville County. The study's results should help us better understand both opportunities and limitations for traffic, housing, utilities, and growth in general. I want to be clear that there are a great many proposed additions to our budget that I am not recommending funding for. I'm not recommending a cost of living adjustment and lower costs for employees to insure their families. I am not recommending an increase in our local teacher supplements. I am not recommending funding for nearly $2 million in additional staffing and other enhancements requested by the sheriff, nor for the vast majority of new position requests from our county departments. I am not recommending more generous funding to almost any of our local nonprofits, all of whom provide important services to this community on shoestring budgets. And I am not recommending funding for a great number of sensible proposals for operational improvements and service enhancements submitted by our county departments. I know this is a lot to swallow, and I know there will be pressure to reduce this proposed increase, but I would leave you with a few thoughts. It's easy to say that if outside revenues decline, we should simply cut expenditures rather than make those up with local revenues. As the manager and as commissioners, we could do that, but we would be responsible for figuring out what to cut and shouldering the burden of the consequences. As I said earlier, I believe that a robust capital improvement plan is an important investment to benefit future generations of Granville residents, children, our grandchildren. Those 2 cents can go away, but then what? How will we pay when the schools or Vance Granville Community College comes to us with critical capital needs? What will we tell residents and students and youth athletes in South Granville who desperately need recreational facilities? What do we do when the senior resident Superior Court judge demands adequate space to hold court in Granville County and meet the justice needs of our residents? With regard to operational increases, those too can go away. But without any pay increases, with expensive family health benefits and lower than usual retirement benefits, how could we expect anything other than a turnover rate higher than we already experience, as well as greater difficulty recruiting talent? Without additional EMS enhancements and with population and call volume increasing, are we prepared for longer and longer wait times for medical assistance to arrive at our homes? My own preference is always to find the most planful way possible to meet the community's needs. Some would say, keep my taxes low. I don't want additional services anyway. But we know that there are people in our community who desperately need these services. We know it takes time and money and planning to build facilities. Lord knows it took us 7 to 8 years to get where we are today with the little North Granville Senior Center. I think in the past, we have sometimes tried to avoid and delay the obvious. Not only do I not subscribe to that approach and not recommend that you, as the Board of County Commissioners, use it, but there is no free lunch. All of our decisions are chickens that eventually come home to roost. My job as manager is to do my very best to understand your preferences, understand the community's needs, understand this organization's dynamics, and to manage all of that, including the budget required to meet those preferences and needs as best I can. Though I acknowledge there will be some financial and political pain involved in adopting the budget I am proposing or something close to it, I do not see attractive alternatives. I would also like to provide some additional important context for this proposed budget and tax rate. The proposed fire tax rate is still nearly the lowest around. The only exceptions I have found are lower rates in a very small number of small, high-value fire districts who can provide the service for themselves at a lower rate. By leaving the fire tax at 6 cents following the revow, the owner of a $300,000 house would pay $5.75 more per month to help strengthen the volunteer fire department that will respond to their house and help save their most important investment if they have a fire. The proposed county property tax rate of 63.1 cents will still be equal to or lower than most of our neighboring counties. Person County will likely be at around 75 cents. Vance County will likely end up where we are or higher. Franklin County may well be a little lower, but then they have experienced even sharper rates of commercial and residential growth in recent years. Durham County will be well above us, and Wake County will probably land above us as well, both of them with property values significantly beyond ours. With this proposed county tax rate, that same owner of a $300,000 house will pay an extra $22 per month to help put meeting the capital needs of our schools and community college on autopilot, to help fund courthouse renovations, much needed recreation facilities, and help our county not lose the bidding war for local talent by funding modest merit pay, a small increase in our 401k match rate, and helping our health benefits not go backwards. We are getting Granville County up to speed. I want to reiterate that inflation, incomes, and property values have all grown over the past 6 years, while property taxes have remained flat. That trajectory is unsustainable. The property tax must continue to bear an appropriate portion of the burden of sustaining the community. Our towns and cities are in a similar boat. Growth is picking up, infrastructure is lagging behind. Without infrastructure, there is no growth. Without growth, our revenues and opportunities diminish. But infrastructure and the people to help operate and maintain it cost money. My colleagues in Oxford, Butner, and Creedmoor are recognizing this. At least your colleagues on the boards of all 5 municipalities also recognize this. At least with the 3 larger communities, the majority will end up much closer to their historical tax rates than the revenue neutral rates. I recognize, and I know commissioners recognize, that this budget represents a big lift for the community. We talk every week and every month all year long about the community's needs. We talk about how to find the right balance as we use the levers available to county government to ensure that Granville County remains a healthy, thriving community. It isn't easy. There may be plenty of critics of this budget. They're welcome to come to our work sessions and/or to the public hearing on the budget. They're welcome to talk to their commissioners, and many of them do. They're welcome to contact me, and many of them do. Doing the public's business is difficult work, but we take it very seriously and try to do the very best job we can. Across all the work of 27 departments, we don't always get every detail right, but we try to. And when mistakes are pointed out, we try hard to create an environment where those same mistakes aren't made again. And that's it. I know it's a lot, and I acknowledge that I and we are looking at a tax increase of some magnitude. Former Chief Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes of the United States Supreme Court once said, "I like paying taxes. With them, I buy civilization." That's what we're trying to do here in local government, in education, in everything we do or attempt to do. We get what we pay for. I appreciate the time you've given me this evening. I appreciate the departments whose hard work we benefit from every day and who spent many hours shaping almost entirely flat budgets. I deeply appreciate Deputy County Manager Karina Weichel's efforts to organize the chaos and make sure that all the little parts add up to a coherent whole. I appreciate Management Analyst David Scheck-Snyder's speedy research, counsel, and visualization efforts that have contributed greatly to our work and to this presentation. I appreciate Deborah Weary, Karen Evans, Audrey Hill, and all the others who've pitched in with production assistance and innumerable acts of generosity pretty much on an hourly basis over these past weeks and months. So what's next? We have 2 budget work sessions scheduled for Monday and Wednesday next week here at the Expo, and a 3rd work session on Thursday if we need it. We have the budget public hearing 2 weeks from tonight on May 20th, and God willing, we will adopt next year's budget 4 weeks from tonight on June 3rd. Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioners, this concludes my presentation of the fiscal year 24-25 recommended budget. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Manager. We will. we're gonna take a quick vote and then we're gonna get a break. So as stated by the manager during his presentation, Monday, May 13th at 9 a.m., Wednesday, May 15th at 9 a.m., possibly May 16th at 9 a.m. if needed, will be dates for our budget workshops. Public is invited to attend. The county manager recommends scheduling the public hearing on the proposed budget for May 20th, 2024. We need a motion to accept the county manager's recommendation.
I'll make the motion that we accept the dates given by the county manager.
Second motion, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion by Commissioner Williford, seconded by Commissioner Cozart. We set the public hearing on the proposed budget for May 20th, 2024. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We'll stand in recess for a brief 10-minute time. The dais is full. We are back in session.
What happened to all the people?
Appreciate the recess opportunity from the public, so thank you very much for that. Our next item before us is Sheriff Matters. Sheriff Matters. Welcome, Sheriff.
First, as always, I have to give honor to God, the author and finisher of everything. I would ask that our community be in prayer for all the law enforcement officers around the country. We're taking a delegation to Statesville tomorrow for the law enforcement memorial for the state. And then we are going to, one of my co-workers was part of the task force officers that was murdered in Charlotte. Former co-worker with the Special Operations Unit. We're going to one of their funerals on Thursday, and then we'll be attending the last funeral on Monday. I think another one of the TFOs died today. So we are continuing to pray for law enforcement across this country and in our state. Tonight we come to you seeking approval for the approval by accreditation manager. The Graham County Sheriff's Office is seeking to become certified, CLIA certified, ACA certified, and the state of North Carolina is going through a certification process that should take effect sometime in 2025. Mr. Bayless and Chief Clements have been working diligently to look at how we can get grant funding to not cost the county any funds. And I think what they've come up with, Mr. Bayless and Chief came up with, was a grant from, I've been in Pamlico today, so it's been a little long day. From the Department of Public Safety, Governor's Crime Commission, we have a grant award. If you so choose to, they will give us funding for $20,000 for about 5 months that the county will not have to match anything to help with our accreditation process. Chief Clement has already started the accreditation training. I think she's been to 2 courses so far, and we are in the process of getting this accreditation manager. We have a resume of the candidate that we are looking at. I think Chief Clements and Mr. Bayless have interviewed about 3 or 4 individuals. This is the individual we propose that will be our part-time accreditation manager to work with Chief Clements as we seek to have the Graham County Sheriff's Office and Detention Center accredited by national and state standard.
Paging through lots and lots of things. So this is the second year of this grant opportunity?
Yes, sir. We've been working on it, I think, since 2023 in February. Going through a process and county manager and finance and Rob Bayless and Chief and them been working to get this thing shored up. And we have a place that we have somebody that we could look at to utilize for our accreditation manager. Part-time, the chief will be the manager as we get everything shored up. We don't want to start the clock through ACA or CALEA, because once you start that clock, you have a time constraint on when you get it done. So we want to try to get all our policies in place so we can present to the county commissioner. We want to put all of our stuff in place before we even go to push the button to get CALEA accredited. And we're working through our Power DMS system now to update all policies. Chief Clements is going through anything that's outdated to change. to get us to where we are ahead of the game once we go to apply for the accreditation moving forward.
Yes, please.
Sheriff, the amount is like right at $20,000, and so that will pay this lady's salary or this person
Yes.
for 5 months?
5 months.
5 months. And at the end of that 5 months, you assume that that will be all that is needed for the accreditation? Is that correct?
Right, so what she's gonna do is assist with Chief Clements, because we have policies that we have to kind of put in place, update. We started on it with Lonnie Lemons. We found little discrepancies and some stuff, so we want to clean that up and not use county money to do it. So that's why Rob and I went after a grant to get that done, to finish the work that, you commissioners started with, Lonnie Lemons. So we're trying to get that cleaned up, get it done, and then apply for accreditation.
Good evening, Sheriff.
Sir.
So I need some clarification. So year one, what did we do year one?
Nothing.
So that money was not expended.
Exactly.
So we're working on the second year of grant, which is almost 20,000.
Correct.
And so we're really not gonna use 40,000, we're gonna use 20,000.
Correct.
What progress has been made year one on accreditation at all?
We've started updating all the policies. So when I came in, we had to start all over what Lonnie Lemons was doing. We found that he was duplicating policies from other places and just stamping our name on it. It didn't fit what we were doing.
But that was on the detention side, correct?
No, agency-wide. He was doing detention and he was doing LEO stuff. So when we started looking at it, go ahead,
I'm sorry, what's Mr. Bayless doing?
Mr. Bayless is assisting Chief Clements in that process now, detention and LEO side. So we were looking at dual tracking this thing, not just one. So when I got there, he was working to basically trying to run the detention center for Major Cash versus doing his job as far as an accreditation piece. So when I started to press him on things of what we needed to get done and the money we were paying him, it wasn't working out. So I chose to get away from that situation and to go in a different direction.
So I just want to be clear. My understanding was that Mr. Lemons was hired to work on detention matters.
He was doing, well, when I got there, he was dabbling in LEO stuff, sending me policies for review on the LEO side as well as detention.
And Mr. Bayless, I thought part of his role was to work on accreditation matters.
Correct.
Okay, so year one, let's just say, not from a grant perspective, but year one of your office, holding your office in that first year, was there progress made on, are we moving the ball forward from accreditation that first year? And was there nothing done on it prior to your arrival?
When I got there, again, I don't know what Lemons was doing, but when I went through the prison policies, because my background is in corrections, I started reviewing it and noticed the trend of how he did his policy. So Bayless and Ms. Clements and myself, Chief Buster, and the other chiefs started going through every policy that we had. But even those policies were outdated. So we are trying to catch up to clean those things up. Even through the recommendations and suggestions through you, Russ, with the liaison with the sheriff's office, as far as our vehicle policies and those types of things, we updated those. We continue to look at how to update, clean up policies, use of force policies, sexual harassment, all of those things. And we have Chief Clements working on it, Bayless working on it, and Chief Buster.
Well, I'm still asking for a copy of your vehicle policy and your training policy, just so you know. I'm publicly asking for a written policy on that, so I'm gonna review a budget, Sheriff, as you know.
25,000, I got
Yeah,
it.
you're very thorough. I want to see what the policy is. And so I haven't seen it yet, and so just know that. I haven't seen a vehicle policy nor a training policy. With that in mind, I'd like to, but with that in mind, you know, I get why you want to do this. I want our agencies, let me back that up. I want the office, the sheriff's office to be CALEA certified and North Carolina certified. I think that's a positive thing because it establishes best practices. I just want to make sure that we're moving the ball forward and that, you know, we're not stalling and I don't mean stalling intentionally, but I mean, we're not working on something that's getting put down and working on something to put down. We need established policies. I'm sure you would like to have updated, established policies that your men and women can operate their daily operations on, without knowing that it's best practice.
Right, so, and I think we need to get this in the context of where it needs to be. A lot of times when people start asking me for the policies of the Granville County Sheriff's Office, I try to explain to them that the Granville County Sheriff's Office's policies and the county policies are two separate different entities. We like to make sure that we're consistent with what some of the stuff that goes on with the county policies versus what the Sheriff's Office policies are. So some of the things by constitutional authority is saying, hey, I can look tomorrow, if you want to come down and see the policies, that's fine. But when people outside of you as a liaison ask me for stuff, then I kind of be like, okay, why do you need to see it? What is this intended for? Because the overreach of certain things and certain people is a concern for me sometimes. So if you want to see what we have now, we have a current vehicle policy. But I was told the county manager, once we kind of look at some more stuff and we kind of shape it, when Chief just came back from training, then I would give you a copy of that. So that has been in conversation for about a month. But again, I just want to make sure we protect the officers of the sheriff. I want to make sure that my personal legal counsel looks at those things as well before I send those things to Drew or to the county attorney.
So I'm okay with the constitutional authority of the sheriff, but I'm also okay with the authority of this board.
Correct.
And so the authority of this board is to review budgets and finances and to see how money is to be spent and allocated to your department. And so, I'm not questioning your authority as the sheriff by no means, but I also know that the policies are something that should be easily attainable by the public and easily attainable by, review. So that's what I'm saying.
Like I said, you could come and look at them. And if you want to take it in canvas and kind of and look at our vehicle policy and our training one,
Just if you could email it to the county manager.
I'll take that into consideration.
Well, I don't know why, okay. There's no need to take it under advisement, Sheriff, because it's public record. And so, I mean, I think the board should at least have the opportunity to review what we're looking at regarding your budget. And I say that with all due respect. We respect your authority of the office, but it's gotta be, there's gotta be a mutual understanding here of what we want to review. It's your policy. You have the right to design a vehicle policy however you want to. But we have the right to look at it to see whether or not it's something we can finance.
Right. So again, I just offered you to come and see it. You come and see it. You can give me questions and feedback. And if there's something we need to change and articulate in that, then we can change those to meet what you're looking for in that policy. So I don't want to send you something that's not complete. I want your feedback as a liaison. So if you want to come and check it out, let's look at it tomorrow.
I get it, Sheriff, but I thought the policy was complete.
Right.
And then you had a written policy.
We do.
Do you have a written vehicle policy?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And I think that you guys got a copy of that last year. When we started having the whole conversation about the 40 miles from the county line and those types of things in the vehicle policy.
I've not received one.
Oh, I think
That's
that
my
was-
point. Have you received one, County Manager?
I don't recall, I recall hearing about it, but I don't recall having received
Right,
it.
that's why I'm asking the question. I've never seen your policy. That's why I'm asking the question the way I'm asking. It's like, when this board clearly wants to cooperate with you, clearly not questioning your authority as sheriff or your constitutional office. But we have a responsibility also, as you can see from looking at the proposed budget, that, I'm gonna make sure by looking at that budget that every I is dotted, every T is crossed, and where we can save money, we can save money. And where we don't need to be spending money, not be spending money, because the public is gonna really expect us to really dot our I's and cross our T's because of what was presented tonight by the county manager respectfully.
And I honestly, and to piggyback on that, Sheriff, it is not a matter of a commissioner and you personally, it's the office of, for instance, the chairman of the Board of Commissioners sent you a read request on an email, and I didn't get one back. And that's the kind of thing is from this office, not me, but from the chairman of the Board of Commissioners to the sheriff of Granville County, wanted a read request on an item, never got it. And that's, I think, where Commissioner May is asking, if you have a written policy in place, put it on a piece of paper, shoot it to the county manager, we'll look at it. Right, wrong, or indifferent, let's see what it is. And obviously, operationally, there's got to be a written policy.
Correct.
Right, so, and I think we'll move on from that. So, are there any other questions? Okay, again, the purpose of this tonight is the Granville County Sheriff Office is requesting approval of a contract for a temporary accreditation policy writer, approved through utilization of close to $20,000 in grant funding. And the recommendation coming from Sheriff Robert Fountain recommends approval of the contract to Belinda L. Pounds as a temporary accreditation policy writer in the amount of $19,999.81. The contract will be funded from a grant awarded by the North Carolina Governor's Crime Commission. And Sheriff Fountain further recommends that the Board of Commissioners authorize the county manager to execute the contract once finalized by the county attorney.
I'll make that motion.
So we've got a motion by Commissioner Rob Wilford to accept the recommendations of our sheriff, seconded by Commissioner Jay. Are there any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
we had some discussion by email today just about making sure that we received this grant a while back. And I'm unclear at this point if we have recognized the revenue into the county budget, which we need to do before we appropriate it. So we'll double check. If that has not happened, that will come back on the 20th and we'll get this.
So with pre-clearance, with
Yeah,
the understanding
one,
of,
one question there, Chairman, may I?
okay, yes.
Sheriff, the fee, the standard rate, is that consistent across the board with what you give all your contractors?
Yes, sir. And this has been worked out with Drew. They've been working this thing out since 2023, I think, in February.
Okay.
We've
Thank
got a motion on the floor. Are there any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Sheriff, we thank you, and please, carry our love and respect and thoughts and prayers to those folks that you're going with to honor and fellowship with your fellow officers in the state as you travel, and safe travels.
And I will make sure Chief will send that to, who wants it the most? Y'all all want to see it?
You send it, just
The county manager would be
yeah,
outstanding.
just send it to county manager. And Sheriff, thank you for pursuing the accreditation. I think it's gonna be very valuable to the sheriff's office and lead the way, and I don't know if any other local department in Granville County is certified. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Real quick before I get out of here, we're trying to reduce the cost. We just went through an e-court. Justice Newby, came and visited our courthouse this past week. The director of the administrative office of the courts came to visit the jail. We had the Superior Court judges from, Catawba County, some other counties come and visit our facilities. We're trying to reduce all inmates from going to the courthouse, which will save us a lot of money in transportation, man hours, based on the e-courts. As you design a facility that has never been used for electronic, court appearances, we're moving in that direction. So that happened last week. The SROs, we have 7, and I think Drew is on board with what we've done so far, we've seen. Our special response team is up and fully running now. We have a SWAT school coming in July. We made our first execution of a search warrant from the Granville County Sheriff's Office. We got the quarterly breakdowns that, Russ, that you asked for. We got them broken down for you as far as the crime reports throughout the county since January through the end of last month. Our MAP program, we submitted, thank you. Our MAP program, we submitted our request for proposal, to Terry Hopfield, I think last week, for MAP programs. And we are now on track. Mr. Williford is a question that you always ask. We're writing checks to the county for about $25,000 to $30,000 every month.
Good job. Thank you. I have a question. Sure.
Yes, sir.
You spoke about the electronic court.
Yes, sir.
Is that at the detention center?
No, the county started this Odyssey, the whole state and going to an electronic court system. Our court system now, you can see about 25 to 30 people a day.
Yeah.
We might routinely go through this phone court for about 600 or 700 people a day. So then, our court system is gonna be extremely increased. So we're trying to establish a way, how do we help the court system? So we got a meeting with Judge Dunlow coming up, Judge Davis and the rest of them, who have court visually, virtually from our jails. So we will be looking at putting in a frame system, and that frame system will work in conjunction with the infrastructure that's at the courthouse now. Like Mr. Braden have already said everything at the courthouse, we're gonna do the thing at the jail. Now we're gonna move towards, if Judge Dunlow approves, we will not transport any inmates to the courthouse again. So that's where we wanna go, so you reduce your cost of people going over there, the man, overtime of transporting inmates and courthouse security. Will reduce our salaries, will reduce our budget as we look at it now. So we're working with the court system and, like I said, the director of AOC and some Supreme Court judges came and Justice Newby came. So we got a lot of stuff we're working. I didn't know if you guys knew about it.
Yeah, thank you, because that'll do a little bit to reduce the traffic at the courthouse. I just wondered if we could put a facility there that would reduce some of the other traffic that are having to go to the courthouse to do the electronic.
And we're looking at, we're doing some hearings in the magistrate's office. So we're working with, CF Knott to see if we can do, instead of people going to the courthouse, if we can run some of the stuff over there. We talked to Nancy Washington, we talked to the DA's office, because we do have, we do have, we have one of the state-of-the-art magistrate offices over at the sheriff's office. So we're looking at taking all of that. People cannot go downtown. We can take care of some of those first appearances and staying at the jail, but we're still in the talking phases of getting there. So we're moving in that direction to reduce the footprint at the courthouse.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, that will eliminate some of that long line standing on side there.
That long line should be gone because you have an appointment only scheduled now. And what it is they only can process about somewhere between 30 and 50 people a day in the court system. So now it's a schedule that they're streamlining. So that's why Judge Newby and those people came and AOC came, because it's all electronic now. So now it's like, I think last week we only did, Thursday, Friday, last week, we only did like 35 of 40 appearances. And then we started doing our first appearances in the jail versus WebEx, using WebEx, so we didn't have to move inmates. So we're gonna continue to expand that to where we can even have trials, because we have a document that they can get audio, visual, court proceedings. So we will look at not taking any inmates out of the jail anymore.
Sheriff, I want, board, this is good information. This is this just the sheriff's department? This doesn't include any of the, this is, narrow it down precisely what you're doing. So thank you. It's, very good information. I look forward to looking at it more closer, but thank you.
I'm gonna ask one more quick question, and I apologize. So when you get accredited, and I'm not a law enforcement background like Commissioner May is that accreditation for 1 year? How long?
Accreditation goes for a 2-year period. Every 2 years you go through, get an appraisal.
Okay.
But what it does is, from the Board of County Commissioners, for the State Board for Risk Management, it helps us because we have an accreditation to our risk liability. We take care of the county in a better way.
Okay.
Because we're doing it, because now we're facing, I think, 2 inmate custody death lawsuits that we've been working with, and our county attorney has been diligently working through getting that stuff done. So we don't want any other things, and that's why our medical staff is doing a better job. Southern Health Partners is doing stuff. Our daily population data, ADP, we have to change to make sure we're doing things the right way, so we don't have those issues.
Once we become accredited.
Yes.
Then that's a 2-year.
Every 2 years, they'll come in
we'll
with an evaluation.
We'll look at doing it again. Thank you.
And it does, on top of DHHS and the DEA, I mean, every year now, since we got our certifications through the DEA and through DHHS, they'll come in every year and audit us now, which we didn't have before.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
That'll bring us to appointments. And our first action item this evening is the Granville County ABC Board. We have to make an appointment, reappointments to the Granville County ABC Board. It's a three-member board appointed by the Granville County Board of Commissioners. The county ABC board members shall be appointed by the Board of Commissioners. One board member shall be appointed from Southern Granville, one board member shall be appointed from Central Granville, and one board member shall be appointed from Northern Granville. The term of Michael Smith has expired. It's a pleasure of the board.
Move to reappoint Mike Smith for the Northern.
Second motion.
Got a motion by Commissioner Jay, seconded by Commissioner Cozart to reappoint Michael Smith. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, what's the pleasure, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign, motion carries.
Easy.
Easier said than done. Right, the next item on the appointments is the Granville County Tourism Development Authority to make appointments to the TDA, Tourism Development Authority. There is let me read the whole thing here, so I don't jump ahead. The Granville County Board of Commissioners established a Tourism Development Authority as a public authority to guide the expenditure of occupancy tax funds and to promote the use and development of county recreational, historic, and tourism resources. The authority has 4 members and shall be appointed by the Granville County Board of Commissioners. 2 of the 4 members must be owners or managers of a Granville County hotel or motel. The other members are 1 appointed by the Oxford City Council and 1 appointed by the City of Creedmoor Council and 1 appointed by the Town of Butner. There is a vacancy for the Economic Development Director seat. And the recommendation is that we fill the available seat with our Economic Development Director, Joe Stallings. Is there a motion to that effect?
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Gooch to appoint Joe Stallings, Economic Development Director, to the Tourism Development Authority. Are there any questions on the motion? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Joe, thank you for your volunteer tourism. Our next item is the Carter Regional Economic Development Commission for Triangle North Board. And this is to fill a county director vacancy on the Carter Regional Economic Development Commission, otherwise known as the Triangle North Board. We had a resignation of a long-serving member of our community, Brian Foll, and he needs to be replaced. Is there anyone the board would like to move in that regard?
Mr. Chairman, I'll motion that, Adam McCollum, Ms. McCollum, from the CEO of Granville Hospital, be appointed.
Second motion.
We got a motion by Commissioner Jay, seconded by Commissioner Cozart to appoint Adam McConnell, the CEO of Granville Health Systems, to the Triangle North Board. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries. I was an aye on that. Next, we've got the county managers' reports. I'll let you get one more. That's part of Drew's reports.
Okay.
Yes?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 contract approvals tonight. The first of which is a short-term consulting contract that we'd like to enter into with Ms. Tanya Evans. She is a retired Deputy Director of Durham 911, who has graciously agreed to help out
our interim director, Stacy Hicks, managed through this transition of the directorship for our 911 emergency communications department. As I'm sure you can appreciate, that's not the kind of transition you want to kind of half-step through, and I really appreciate her willingness. She's a Butner resident, a Granville County resident, her willingness and interest in stepping up and helping with this transition. This contract is a not to exceed $30,000 contract, which I think should largely be paid for through lap salary in the department. Happy to answer any questions on this contract if you have any.
And I see Stacy here tonight. I'm
Yep.
assuming that is Tanya next door.
Correct. I'm sorry.
Awesome. Good to see you both tonight. So we've got a recommendation from our county manager to approve the emergency communications consulting contract with Tanya Evans for the amount not to exceed $30,000 and approve and authorize the county manager and county attorney to finalize and execute the contract. It's a pleasure of the board.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Hinman, seconded by Commissioner Willisford, to accept the county manager's recommendation. Any questions? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, board. Second item before you is an item we've talked about before, and you all actually gave me the authority to execute a short-term lease for 204, for the second floor of 204 Williamsboro Street, the former law offices of Mr. John Watson. That was with the anticipation of a long-term lease for the entire building following it. And in fact, we were so close to finishing up the long-term lease that we actually are bringing both of them together. And it's kind of a pair of documents that work together. I'm really happy with the negotiations and that our attorney's office concluded with Mr. Watson. I think the lease rate for the long-term lease, which is up to 15 years, 3 5-year terms, is very attractive to us. And I think a good deal for the county and creates good space for our HR and finance departments. Happy to answer any questions about that lease agreement. The lease agreement should be passed around. You should all have copies at your desk. Apologies that was not included in the packet.
That is for the entire building.
Entire building, correct. Yep.
Initially, be a lease for the top floor for 6 months, and then the entire building.
Right now, we just give it the top. We've got a lease that covers both the top and the whole building, but we have a lease for just the top of the building for up to 6 months while he cleans out his stuff from the rest of the building, and then it'll go into effect for the full building.
Good job.
And again, the purpose of this is to seek approval for a short and long-term lease for 204 Williamsboro Street, the former law offices of John Watson, to provide additional stay for the county human resources and finance departments. The county manager recommends that the board approve this lease and authorize the county manager to execute it.
I'd like to make a motion for the board to approve the lease and authorize the county manager to execute it.
I'll second that.
We got a motion by Commissioner Gooch, seconded by Commissioner Hinman. Are there any questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries.
I have no further items this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Rest your voice after the long budget presentation. Outstanding. That will bring us to our county attorney's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 3 items, 2 for open session and 1 economic development matter for a closed session. So the first issue is we received within the last week a communication from the National Council on the Opioid Litigation requesting our approval to, if the court approves it, amend the complaint in that case to include pharmacy benefit managers. And I'll just read you part of the communication that I received. It says, as part of our continued efforts to help remedy the effects of the opioid crisis in your community,
a consortium has been investigating the role that pharmacy benefit managers played in contributing to the crisis. PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers, are companies who administer prescription drug plans for health insurers, self-insured employers, and governments, negotiate drug prices and availability with drug manufacturers, process and pay claims, review drug utilization data, and operate mail order pharmacies. Judge Polster recently opened a new bellwether track of cases against Express Scripts and Optum Rx, two of the three PBMs with the largest market share in the United States. We're in the process of drafting a motion that would give all plaintiffs in the multi-district litigation the right to amend their claims by opting into a master pleading, which follows the existing bellwether complaints and sets forth the legal and factual basis for claims against the pharmacy benefit managers. In connection with this effort, we're recommending that, subject to our obtaining court approval, you agree to amend your current complaint to add claims against Express Scripts and Optum Rx and their relevant subsidiaries concerning their role in fueling the opioid crisis. So again, both the National Litigation Council and the local council, that's Jake Daniel out of Rockingham County, who's been here to the board a couple of times, recommend that the board vote to amend the complaint. I have no opinion on it. I'll certainly be happy to answer any of your questions you all have, but I've got no way to judge whether these pharmacy benefit managers are just attractive targets for plaintiffs' attorneys or if they've actually done something wrong. So I'll leave that to the board to determine.
Does the board have any questions? Jim, would we need a motion to amend our, how would that play?
It would be a motion to authorize me to notify the National Council that you all agree to amend the complaint. The letter further said, please respond by Friday, May 17th, confirming that you agree to the amendment of your complaint to add the PBM defendants, including related subsidiaries. So that's what their question is, or their request is. They also said if you have questions, let them know, but I'm not sure how we'll get an accurate response by May 17th.
So the upside would be more money, the downside would be?
The upside would be more money, the downside would be if you have any, I guess, philosophical opposition to the suit against it without knowing the full facts behind it.
Okay. Any questions for our attorney? This is the pleasure of the board.
So what you're telling me, county attorney, is there really are no downsides?
Again, that's if money is your only object, there are no downsides.
As the national opiate litigation reads that we heard from our attorney, it appears that they, this company put profit before anything else, and that they knew that if they restricted folks that were getting the short-term scripts, that they would lose $10 to $20 million. So, I mean, that's not a judgment on my part, but I think that you go after those with culpability in the process, and that you probably knew better than to continue it and prolong the or exacerbate the situation.
So those that represent our board from the opioid committee, what's your recommendation along with the county's attorneys?
We have more needs than we have money.
I have no recommendation. I don't know enough about the litigation to be able to make a recommendation.
Thank you.
I kind of concur with our attorney. This is the first I've heard of it, don't know anything about the background on it, and don't really have enough knowledge to make a sound judgment, other than, I guess, if we vote for it, we're jumping on the bandwagon with others.
You always have the option, again, they gave us the option, if you have questions, to let them know. And my guess is that there's nothing in here that leads me to believe this will be sudden death if you don't respond by May 17th. So we could let them know that you have questions and ask somebody to present the merits of it to you. But that's a matter for the board if they want.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, Mr. Chairman, with no recommendation from the attorney, unless our liaisons have a strong recommendation, and if he has no opinion, I probably don't have one either.
So
I'll leave it on the
maybe,
table.
I'm sorry,
No, just leave it on the table.
My thoughts are is that, the county attorney have a chance to further review what you have now to be able to come back and make a recommendation before the deadline that you would feel comfortable with. I understand getting on the bandwagon of money, but also understand how sometimes not having the full scope of the legal matter, then we could end up, I don't want to be tied to something we later don't want to be tied to.
I can ask for additional information and certainly see if it's enough to make us feel like we've got enough information to do it. As the chairman said, there are allegations that it says despite all these resources and a raging epidemic, we're going to play with the pharmacy benefit manager defendants failed to act. So I think what they're alleging is that they should have seen the trend and pattern of opioid prescription and done something to stop it. And it says, for example, in 2017, when clients and government agencies were demanding change to limit the flow of pills, Express Scripts concluded that they would implement either the 7-day or 10-day limit on short-acting opioids, which are most profitable for us. We're looking to lose 10 to 20 million in margin. Again, I don't know anything beyond that quote there. So again, we can ask for more information, see what we get, and take it up at the next board meeting. Or at one of the, I don't know any reason we couldn't add it on in one of the budget sessions that was, notice.
Mr. Chairman, if the county manager doesn't object, his opinion matters as well. I'd like to do what the county attorney just recommended, and then if we don't anymore at that point, then I feel like we've done our due diligence.
Right, I agree, and is there a way we can reach out to the, and I'm gonna call it the wrong numbers, 555-7710, the NCACC Association of folks that were put together as the panel of experts on the opiate class settlement, and see if what
they recommend?
General feeling of the other 99 counties are.
That sounds like a good idea. I think we could reach out in a couple of different directions and see what additional information we may be able to bring to bear by, let's say, next Wednesday.
So without a motion, I think we can just head nod and say that if you could just get us a little more information, we move forward.
Okay.
Does that please everybody? Yeah. Thank you. You get more stuff.
What's that?
More
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah, I've got another one for open session. So the next matter I have is an interlocal agreement between Granville County and Granville Advanced District Health Department for the opioid community development specialist services. And this is a contract, basically setting out the terms and conditions upon which the county will, out of the opioid settlement, will fund the position of the opioid community development specialist for the remainder of this fiscal year. And then it will also need to be included in the upcoming year's budget as well. And our firm has acted basically as a scrivener on this. We represent both the county and the health department. So we have recommended that if either one had concerns about what we've written here, that they obtain outside counsel. But essentially, for the balance of this fiscal year to fund this position, and the person is scheduled to start in mid-May, it would be at $35,000. And I believe the budget, and this is not just the pay for the person, but it includes all the incidentals of supporting the opioid advisory committee and helping coordinate the opioid effort. The proposed estimated budget would be $150,000 for next year. And you've got the memorandum in front of you. So basically a pass-through where the county would be paying the funds from the opioid settlement to the health department to manage that service. And this is something that you approve and recommend.
I would just note for the commissioner's benefit that the allocation of opioid settlement funds for this position that is now kind of referenced in this interlocal agreement was done probably 6 months ago. So this is sort of in a way, the implementation mechanism and conclusion of that effort, sort of in establishing this position and the scope of work that that person will undertake.
Mr. Attorney, Jim, this is just for the position for the Granville opioid. It's coming through the Granville Vance Health District, but it's only for just.
That's my understanding, is that all the program will
Not, not for Vance.
right.
The health
seems to have more experience, and I'm speaking for Drew here, but the health department seems to have more experience with type of position and that type of thing, so it was a logical fit in the health department than it was county administration.
And also, there has been talk that once the Vance County gets their opioid committee in place, that this person will probably serve both counties and we would split the cost on it. But that's not anything in writing, that's not anything solid yet, but that's what the plan is for the future.
That's correct. I've heard that as well, and I think they're just moving a little more slowly. It was important to us, for Granville County, to basically start to kind of put an implementation mechanism in place, somebody to really help drive this work along. And so I think this is logical and makes sense for Granville alone, and if we can defray the cost for the contribution from Vance County in future years, so much better.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board for this interlocal agreement between Granville County and the Granville County Vance District Health Department for Opiate Community Development Specialist Services?
Motion to approve.
And I'll second.
We got a motion by Commissioner Gooch, seconded by Commissioner Williford to approve the interlocal agreement. Are there any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. Thank you. And then Jim, what's the numbers and whatnot for the closed session when we come after our county board presentations?
Sure, it's, I'd have to pull the statute for the numbers, but it's for, economic development matters.
Economic development matters, okay. We'll put that down. Okay, so now we've, that brings us to our presentation by county board members, and Commissioner Hinman, you are first.
Hi, since I was able to make my remarks during the earlier, I have no report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, I had the opportunity today at 5 o'clock. Commissioner May, of course, came. It was a very festive feel over at Mary Potter. All of the recognitions, bus driver of the year, teacher assistant of the year, every category of employee. They recognize a person who won the of the year award. Was very a lot of excitement, and it was good to see all the balloons and celebratory remarks. I'm very thankful for all the employees of every category in our school system. Also, I just wanted to mention that on March 23rd, there will be another child care forum, and we've mentioned this before. The 1 o'clock session is primarily for those who might want to start a child care center. And then the way Representative Sossaman has it is at 6 o'clock. It's more of a community kind of a gathering at the, I'm going to say Holiday Inn, right there off 85, the hotel going right in. I think Ms. Deborah sent out the flyer, but if you can come, we sure will be glad to see you there. And I don't know, Commissioner Jay, I know you are our liaison with cards. I don't know if the director might want to come just yet. I hear a lot of great things about him from people around who've been in to see him. And his hands may be somewhat tied by some restraints we don't know of. But anyway, Mr. Chairman, if he ever does, I'm sure it would be good to clear up some things. And even those who were here tonight spoke very highly of him, those who had here to see him. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Could I chime in there and just say I've had a number of recent conversations with Mr. Cantor, the executive director of CARTS, and I've chatted with him about, actually all the work that he's done, I think, to tighten up. You'll remember that last year we had to make a number of additional appropriations to keep CARTS afloat. He is running a fairly tight ship over there, and I invited him to take an opportunity to come and speak directly to the board. So I think we may see him in the next month or two. He was willing to to take that show on the road and come talk with us about some of the improvements and maybe hear a little bit about some of our needs and desires for the cart system as well.
Good. Well, whilst y'all talking about costs. Thank you. We have, at costs, we get 800, sometime 890 calls a day come into costs. And those calls comes in, you just can't wait to the day to call in and want a trip to Chapel Hill, or either to a job at Revlon at 6 o'clock in the morning. Because our system, at the end of the day, it calculates every driver in their routes for the next morning when they get on that bus. And yes, I can go flip a hot dog, hamburger at McDonald's or Wendy's, but for the price that we can pay it. We paying our drivers at $12 an hour. And we trying to figure out what kind of funds and stuff and shift up around to pay our employees more. But those employees that is working for costs, they are truly dedicated peoples that will drive that bus. When COVID hit, whole lot of our drivers went home and they can draw that unemployment that week. But we had a lot of drivers just continue to drive because, and they told us they would drove the bus if we didn't pay them anything because the people, they was out here to serve the people, not for the money. But yes, we have turnovers. Yes, we have buses that state says we have to have, when you get to 150,000 miles on it, you have to take them off. We have some buses is running with 200,000 miles on it. Some of that because we couldn't get the buses in. Our buses now coming in. I think we're supposed to get in something like 8 or 10 more buses in, new buses in, sometime this month. So they're making a difference. We thank each and every one of the counties for what they did to help us out, and we appreciate it. We are now in better shape that I've seen carts in a while. The routes, I know the Southern Indian County won't run a route just like the one we got here in Oxford. Franklin County is asking us for the same thing. Warren County is asking us for the same thing. And we telling Warren County the same thing we telling y'all, tell Graham County that you have to draw your route out. After you draw your route out and find the money to run that route, then we'll put the drivers there for you.
So, Mr. J, if I may, Chairman?
Sure.
Do municipalities put any money into carts?
No.
So this is solely, I just wanted to confirm that, this is solely county funded, so the counties are funding this, none of the municipalities are funding this?
Correct.
And I'll reserve my further comments for when I speak, but I just wanted to confirm that, thank you.
Yeah, that's correct. The county's funding. I'll say my rest of it so I come back.
You bet. We'll bounce back to the order here with Commissioner May.
I'll try to make it quick, Chairman, thank you. It's been a long evening for all of you, so thank you, County Manager. 532 square miles. in no disrespect to anyone, but it's impractical to believe that you could pick up a phone in the morning and expect a taxi service out of a service that's designed to pick up initially elderly folks and folks that are needed to go to the doctors and things of that nature on an appointment basis, well in advance. So I think what I heard tonight was some misconceptions as to how CARTS is designed. So that's something I think is an important message to get out, is that how is it actually designed? Next is that we would like to have municipal services between Butner and Creedmoor, and I do understand that would be a cost. And then our sole goal would be to find a way to bring together those municipalities in which they can reach the maximum amount of 10,000 people, which we know they both have combined, and be able to derive a similar service than they have at Oxford on a grant. And that's our goal. And that Mr. Cantor, that's what I will impress upon him, is that's what we're working on. It's like, we understand the cost otherwise. And so sure, everyone would like a bus to show up when your car breaks down, your battery's not working, or you're, and no one likes to see someone waiting at the doctor's office. But it's understanding how CART's designed to work, I think would be very good for that group tonight, so they could truly understand how CART's is designed. My next topic is for the county manager and county attorney and the board. I hear what I'm hearing from Franklin County. I'm hearing what I'm hearing about the eval. And I've taken the time to read as best I could some of the information provided by the folks from the southern part of the county here. I would just want to make sure that we're doing all our due diligence with our eval company, that when things are identified and found, that they're not just working those individual solutions, but they're looking for solutions that may have impacted a larger amount of people. And so I'm challenging them, and you all be our voice for us, and I would like for them to look at this along with you, county manager and county attorney, and see what we can do. And then at least I think it'd be appropriate to communicate back with that individual of the findings. The other question I have about that county manager, you can talk to me about it later, is, at what point are we have not heard of a case yet before the Board of Equalization. And so, can you give us kind of a roundup? It doesn't have to be at night, but how is that going, and how are they responding back to people that file appeals, so that we actually know that these things are actually being addressed, and that, we're not going to have an avalanche of appeals hitting us all of a sudden while we're trying to work on the budget matter. And again, thanks for everything that everyone did tonight. I appreciate it, and thank you for your time on that. And Mr. Chair, I invite you to pitch in on that as well, because I know it's talking about our folks in the southern end of the county have these concerns. And so I just want to make sure that, and I'm sure there are other places in the county do, but I want to make sure that we've done everything we can in our due diligence. I'm not trying to grandstand here, trying to take up a cause. It's just, I really think it's important that everyone feels as if they have gotten the VVAL that they feel is appropriate, even though they may not agree with the final sum, but all the things were done and there's not a problem with the modeling or things like that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Mack. Mr. Gooch?
Thank you, Chair. Just a few things. We talk about the taxes in the county, and it's always my concern about how this affects, especially the elderly people on fixed incomes. And several of us have gotten together at various times. We've talked to our state senator and a state House of Representatives member about getting updating the circuit breaker tax deferment for senior citizens. And the way it's set up now is if you have an income which is $36,700 per year or less, your taxes are limited to 4% of your income. And if your income is 150% of this, which is $55,050, your taxes are limited to 5% of the owner's income. And we just love to see the state update this, because update the income. I think that the income levels need to be higher, so more people will qualify, and it won't have the effect that it has on our seniors that we have. And there's also, they have a disabled veterans exclusion that probably needs to be looked at too, and they have an elderly disabled exclusion that should be looked at. And I just like to see our state legislature take this up and update it. I'd really like to see a property tax exemption for senior citizens for a certain amount of the property taxes. But anyway, moving on, we hear from people who want different things. The county doesn't have unlimited dollars. We don't have a unlimited bank account. We have a certain budget we have to work within, and it's tight. It gets tighter every year. And the only way we can loosen the budget any is to raise taxes, and that's the last thing any of us want to do. And when somebody comes around and they want $50,000 for a program or $500,000 for a program, we have to put that in perspective of how much it's going to affect the tax rate. It's not like we've got money sitting here that we can do it with. And to give you a couple examples, somebody would say, well, the public schools gets a big portion of it, we could cut from there. Well, these are probably people who don't have children in public school, or they have children that go to charter schools. On the other hand, you got people who support public schools, and they want all the funding that that the public schools need to not only survive but to thrive. And parks and recreation. Some people that don't use the parks say that's money wasted. Those that use it needs to be expanded. We need more parks. We need more recreation. So there's a flip side when somebody comes and wants money for a certain ticket item or a certain item, or they want you to take money away from a certain area to fund another area. There's also people that are just as passionate as them about what they want. So it's mighty tough on us. We have to do a balancing act, and it's extremely difficult, and we're going to have some extremely difficult decisions to make within our budget talks. So not looking forward to it, but it's something we have to do. And with that, that concludes my remarks for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gooch, and back to Commissioner Jay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to get back. It keep dawning on my mind that the lady said was something about carts not coming picking up someone. Our first goal is make sure if you got a doctor's appointment, make sure you get that patient get to that doctor. And make sure that they get to that dialysis on time. Even though you might have to wait a little bit after your dialysis, costs which when they make that trip back, they pick up, they don't can't take, just like a taxi, take one person at a time and bring them back. They take several people back at a time. People's got to realize that you got to have a little patience with us. But we try, and most of the time, I haven't heard any time that we haven't, for tonight, that we haven't got those patients to their doctor's appointment or to their dialysis on time. We've been doing that. That's all I'm gonna say on that. Virtual Island is having their summer fest, which kicks off the 25th of a parade. It's an enjoyable one. You rise in the parade and see all the peoples, and then they feature good old Burma stew or eat a barbecue. So, anyone would like to go, please let me know. I either let Deborah know so we can make the arrangement and everything. Also, at our last, environmental board meeting, the issue come up about solar farms. And they supposed to be having at our next meeting, I can't think of the gentleman from, I think he's from Chapel Hill, supposed to let us know the pros and cons of solar. What the effect, what not the effect, can you go back and the use of a solar farm after your lease is over with? But anyway, he's supposed to be coming and speaking for us on our next meeting, so you're welcome to come.
When's that
Bring
meeting?
your question with it.
When is that next meeting? I'm sorry. You don't know.
Next Monday. But anyway, I just want to let you know. And then also they always keep asking that if there's any kind of project that we feel that this board want to work on, but let us know. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Jack. Commissioner Wilford?
I'm gonna make it easy. I'm gonna have no comments tonight.
Very easy. I just want to make a couple quick things before we go into an executive session here. I want to thank the staff that was involved in putting together Spirit Week for your co-employees. It was an outstanding event, I thought. We got together and fellowshiped and had a barbecue, and I think people were actually in good spirits. So a lot of folks, some of them didn't realize that they worked for the county, but it was a good gathering. So I appreciate that annual event. I think we haven't met since then, so I know that the county did share the Granville County folks standing on the dots. That was a fun idea. Thank you, Terry, for the drone footage of that. It's pretty nifty. I know last week, Friday, we had the North Carolina Association of Counties district meeting, and thank you, Commissioner Jay, for being our district representative on that board. And of course, we had Franklin County, Vance County, Warren County, a bunch of folks here, and I had opportunity to speak to some of the folks from Franklin County, as well as Michael Schreiber. And I noticed a typo here in this pamphlet that we received from the South Granville Community Alliance. It was a commissioner who talked about the large discrepancy of things that happen in Granville County. And he asked that they perform a full audit and that they assured everyone was taxed fairly. We discovered a typo, not in the actual use of the appraised values, but it was simply a typo. Some information was misasserted in our book, and we fixed it. And this alliance doesn't seem to understand that. And I told you at the top of the meeting that it was an A for attendance, and I see 3 citizens. Not that our staff aren't citizens, but I'll call you by name, but I'm sorry, sir, I don't know yours. I'll fix that here in a little bit, but we're left with 3 folks. So, there's a lot of valuable information that comes at the very end of this meeting. I don't know who the president of the South Granville Community Alliance is. They haven't reached out to me and identified themselves as such, but sure would like to have a conversation with folks and not be talked to, but have actual conversation. So with that, we'll move into. Are there any other matters coming before this board? Okay, we have a need for an executive session for economic development under General Statute 143-318.11, parentheses 4 for economic development. And we have a motion to go into that executive session.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We got a motion by Commissioner Kozar, second is Commissioner Jay. And then we move into that executive session for economic development. Do we anticipate any action when we come out?
I would expect action, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we will take a few minutes and go into a closed session. So we will stand at recess until it's going to let them know. Anybody here? And we're recording. Good. All right, we are back in regular session. All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
Do what Jim said.
All right, which is to authorize the option of the Second Amendment for the manager and the attorney to execute on Triangle North.
And I'll second that.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yes.
Did I sum it up okay?
Yes, with us to make any non-substantive changes.
Great. And you've heard the motion by Commissioner Hinman, second by Commissioner Williford. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Right, we got a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
So moved. Motion by Commissioner Hinman, seconded by Commissioner Williford. To adjourn, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Guess we'll be